Members of Parliament to debate Ramaphosa's maiden State of the Nation address. Mining stakeholders welcome the postponement of a court application challenging the reviewed mining charter widely. Police Minister Fikile Mbalula promises to bring AJ Gupta and the Estina Dairy Farm project suspects to book.
And in the sports front, India completes yet another dominant performance over South Africa in the first T20 international to be complete at 5-1 win in one-day international series.
Hello and welcome to Newsroom. A very happy Monday to you. I'm Shanta Yankees coming to you live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg. A lot coming up between now and 12 p.m, including live coverage from different parts of South Africa, as well as the latest news from the continent. Of course, I'm not alone. Marumo Kekana joins us on our sporting highlights. A very good morning to you, Marumo. You're good. The T20, the boys letting us down once again.
Once again, I mean, look, on the ODI, they lost by 5-1, and yet again on the T20, we're actually hoping that South Africa will get to redeem themselves. But it was not to be, as India held on and made sure that they obviously hand down the most punishable ever series that we ever played against them. And clearly, South African batsmen will have to work around dealing with the spinners of the Indian team. But of course, this and more later on during the sports bulletin. For now, we hand you over to Shantae with the headlines.
Headlining your top story this hour, a joint sitting of both houses will begin a debate on President Cyril Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address that was delivered on Friday night. The debate will start at 10 o'clock and is expected to end after 8 in the evening. President Cyril Ramaphosa will only reply tomorrow. On Wednesday, the finance minister will table the budget. Some news abroad. The news abroad, Zimbabwe's opposition leader and former Prime Minister Morgan Tsvangirai is expected to be buried in his home village of Buhera in the east of the country tomorrow. The MDC leader died in a Johannesburg hospital last Wednesday at the age of 65 after a long battle with cancer. Figures across the political divide attended his memorial service at a church in the capital Harare yesterday. At a gathering of supporters mourning Tsvangirai, President Emerson Mnangagwa spoke of his hope of peaceful elections later this year. Continuing with the African news abroad, we do know that, of course, turmoil is also taking place in Ethiopia that we've seen, with uncertainty continuing to haunt Ethiopia following the resignation of Prime Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn on Thursday. The country's defense minister, Siraj Fegesa, has also announced a state of emergency. For now, though, let's take a short break here on SABC Newsroom. Do stay tuned.
So the issue of waves is that don't underestimate yourself. You are exactly the cornerstone of the solutions we are looking for.
to go and intervene and make sure that people respect the Constitution.
Now, if drug dealers are paying political leaders, then you will never get rid of that problem.
We need to see detail that we will not see further bailouts.
Fidel, a towering figure of the 20th century.
Stay tuned to PM News for all your news updates every Saturday and Sunday from 1500 hours.
The area of Blowbush was bought in 1895 by a private syndicate consisting of 31 Christian Zulu landowners. The elegant Methodist church and school was built in 1912 from local sandstones. From 1917 to 1918, the well-known Chief Albert Lutuli was appointed the principal of the tiny intermediate school.
Well, the school was established in 1912. It was a significant year according to the history. We are having the Titanic sinking in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. We are having the biggest and the oldest political organization being formed. That was the ANC. The parents in this era were busy rolling their sleeve. They carved these big stones into shapes and they erected a building. They called it a school. The name of the school was Blowbush Bantu Community School. The word or the name Blowbush, it means an indigenous land. Blue bush in English, it's blue bush. Then in Dutch, it's Blowbush. So that's how the school was formed.
He taught at the school for 2 years before moving to the Adam College near Amazindot, where he stayed for 15 years. Chief Albert Lutuli became well known later in his life when he got involved in politics, becoming the president of the African National Congress. Chief Albert Lutuli Museum is a national cultural institute inside the school in hope to conserve, uphold, promote and speak about the life, values, philosophy and legacy of the late chief.
Namhlanje iBlowbush, isikolo, nesonto, nomuzi wakaqaba lapho wayehlala khona. Mazibe ama-heritage landmark sites. Sibhizi right now siyakhulumisana na-Amafa Heritage Council that iBlowbush Primary School and the Methodist Church, nomuzi wakaqaba, they must be declared heritage sites.
During his stay in Blowbush, Chief Albert Lutuli was confirmed in the Methodist Church and became a preacher. It was noted over the years that the language of the Bible and Christian principles profoundly affected his political style and belief for the rest of his life. Today, Blowbush is striving to become the main commercial and industrial center in the northern KwaZulu-Natal. Continuous development will be seen in the city and the municipality is working towards making the area more sustainable.
Welcome back to SABC Newsroom. Well, members of Parliament are returning to Cape Town earlier than usual this week. This morning, a joint sitting of both houses will begin a debate on the President's State of the Nation address, which was delivered on Friday night. The debate will end this evening. President Cyril Ramaphosa will reply tomorrow. On Wednesday, the Finance Minister will table the budget. A parliamentary committees resume with 28 meetings scheduled for the week. Tomorrow, the Minister of Communications will brief the Portfolio Committee on the Shareholder Compact and Memorandum of Incorporation of the SABC. And then on Wednesday, the Mineral Resources Committee will hear the responses of Minister Zuma on state capture allegations. In his first engagement as a head of state, President Cyril Ramaphosa has applauded the South African National Defence Force for not getting involved in politics. He was speaking at an interfaith service in Kimberley to remember soldiers who died in the line of duty and those deployed on peacekeeping missions.
The new commander-in-chief taking his first salute, and it was down to business.
Mr. President, allow me to invite you. Here are your troops. Here are your troops.
This comes after a tense week where South Africa saw a second recall of president by his party. But the SANDF remained focused at the task at hand and didn't get involved in the political transition.
Your task is to protect the integrity of our democracy. Your task is to protect our constitution. Your task is to protect the people of South Africa.
He further praised the late President Nelson Mandela, who he says molded a great institution.
He left us a National Defence Force that is a true microcosm of our diverse society.
He has promised to visit the troops that are deployed in peacekeeping missions on the continent.
We applaud you for the demonstration of solidarity you are displaying in a number of African countries as you participate in peace missions where you are distinguishing yourselves as the soldiers of our country, as dedicated and outstanding members of the South African National Defence Force.
A tower for all the fallen soldiers in the period leading up to the Armed Forces Day was also unveiled at the service. The day commemorates the sinking of the SS Mendi in 1917 and will take place on Wednesday. Pule Mudupe, SABC News, Kimberley.
ANC-NEC members Lindiwe Zulu and Zuma Dlamini have met with the party's provincial structures in Bloemfontein. The National Executive Committee of the ANC is tasked with meeting regional leaders and structures throughout the country to communicate the party's decision to recall former President Jacob Zuma.
So all of us were deployed in various regions, and myself and Comrade Stumo were deployed to Mangaung. Fortunately for us, we have had our meetings going very well. We gave an opportunity to explain the decision of the NEC and why we came to that decision of the NEC, the communication thereof to President Jacob Zuma, but also we enabled the comrades here to express themselves in as far as how they felt about that decision. And the discussions that ensued here went very well. Everyone who was here, chairpersons and secretaries of branches were here. Everyone who needed to express themselves, they got the opportunity to do so. I think what is very important for the African National Congress and this region in particular was that that decision was accepted, that this is the decision of the National Executive Committee of the ANC, and that we all need to go out and communicate with the members of the African National Congress at branch level and everywhere, including the leadership of the branches. It's their responsibility to go and explain that they received the report from the NEC. They appreciate the manner in which the ANC has managed to handle the situation until where we are now.
Well, the ANC is set to hear back from its deployees regarding feedback from its regional structures. The party's leadership went on a drive to update the regions and give reasons for the NEC's decision to recall former President Jacob Zuma. ANC spokesperson Bulemabe says managing perceptions and reinstating the integrity of the party, as well as dealing with transition, were among the top reasons provided.
Part of the things that had been addressed, one, we had to deal with the notion that, President Zuma has never been found guilty of any crime, and that we should also be seen to be acceding to the universal principle that individuals are innocent until proven guilty.
So why was he removed?
That also applied to President Zuma.
Indeed.
There would have been an issue raised about the Constitutional Court with the issues around the oath of office and all of that the Constitutional Court would have pronounced on. So that was, of course, a serious matter that the ANC would not have taken lightly.
Would that have been put forward as a reason?
It is not necessarily. It's one of the things that would have been conveyed as it dealt with how you want to manage issues of integrity and all of that, without necessarily casting aspersions on any individual. We had tried to also file that with our structures so that there is no misreading of what the leadership is trying to do. Because if you just go out and say, our overall drive is to also make sure that we reassert the integrity of the movement, then the next question will be, what are you trying to resolve? You know,
I'm not really understanding, I have to be honest with you, because there's still that void you're talking about. There is still no reason given as to why President Jacob Zuma was recalled.
I'm trying to go to that. I'm trying to go to those that would have been raised, because we needed, you see, Leon, just to overemphasize this point, we needed to deal with this notion that President Jacob Zuma has never been found guilty of any
we
crime.
Understand that. We understand that, but I'm asking you the question.
Yes.
Why was he recalled?
Yes.
I mean,
So
we didn't recall him. The ANC recalled him. So we are not pronouncing him guilty. You clearly are. So can you not give us a reason?
No. I mean, we spoke about the issue of the Concord judgment, which would have been one of the issues laboured upon.
Okay.
We also spoke about the issue of how you manage transition in the manner that you do not create instability in the movement. But most importantly, President Zuma himself, and this point I've made previously, had acceded to stepping down as President of the Republic. The issue really was around the time frames. Are you doing it now, or are you doing it after 3 or 6 months?
Okay.
You know, and then what the National Executive Committee did, it only invoked clause 12.2.21.2, which allows it to recall any of its deployees. This is the authority that the NEC has. But we must also remember that in the final analysis, President Zuma voluntarily stepped down.
Well, ANC branch leaders in the eThekwini region have lashed out at the ANC national executive members for the manner in which former President Jacob Zuma's recall was handled. NEC members Dr. Zweli Mkhize and Barbara Creasy met with branch members to inform them of the decision to recall Zuma.
These ANC leaders represent branches in eThekwini, the ANC's biggest region. This was an opportunity for a report back from the NEC on the reasons for the former president's recall. The meeting was closed to the media, but sources attending the meeting say the leaders were met with a tongue-lashing from the branch members. Branch members criticized the leadership for the timing of the report back, while some argued that leaders were taking ANC decisions to the media before informing the branches.
They thought that they were supposed to be involved before the decision was taken, and some of them said, no, this is the manner it was handled. They would be happy if the manner was handled in a different view. But most of them are just generally saying it would be better if they were involved just before the decision was finalized.
The negative reaction was to be expected in KwaZulu-Natal. President Jacob Zuma enjoyed strong support from the province throughout his tenure. In spite of their unhappiness, however, they are said to have accepted the decision.
A number of branch leaders have expressed their concerns about the decision, and they are also wishing that the matter should be engaged a bit more. Although they understand that on a decision like this, we have to accept the decision of the organization, but there's a whole lot of other issues which are internal to the organization that they would like us to look at, particularly the manner the issues are being handled in the media.
Party leaders have been meeting branches across the province over the last 2 days. A report on the meetings and responses from the branches is expected to be compiled and presented to the NEC. Ayanda Mhlongo, SABC News, Durban.
IFP leader Mangosuthu Buthelezi has expressed confidence in President Cyril Ramaphosa's leadership in taking the country forward. Buthelezi was addressing party members at a mobilization campaign in KwaMashu in Durban. But he cautioned against the ANC's policies. He says they may hinder Ramaphosa's vision for the country.
Kickstarting the party's campaign trail, Buthelezi has encouraged voters to register to vote. He reminded party members of the power of their vote. Buthelezi said former President Jacob Zuma's resignation was a victory, but the country was still in trouble.
Mr. Zuma is just an individual. It is the policies of the ruling party that we need to fight against. We need to let them know that we won't accept corruption, we won't accept economic decline, we won't accept being taken for granted, we won't accept being ignored or treated with contempt. South Africa deserves better.
Buthelezi has attributed the IFP's success in recent elections to a credible branch system.
Branches are the important lifeblood of any political party. And this is why you hear so much about bogus branches. These bogus branches pretend to elect a delegate to conference so that they can come to conference and do whatever they want. They can sway the votes. They can cause disruption and chaos at conferences. They can manipulate the outcome. They can even do damage, not just to our reputation, but to our members. Please, let's get rid of camps in the party.
The IFP is set to take its election mobilization program to all areas of the province. Sibonga Gongambata, SABC News, KwaMashu.
The Chamber of Mines say they want to renegotiate a new charter from scratch. The Chamber has confirmed that it has agreed to postpone its court application challenging the reviewed mining charter after meeting with President Cyril Ramaphosa. The application was due to be heard in the High Court in Pretoria from today. The Presidency and the Chamber of Mines have approached the 7 other applicants as well as 2 friends of the court, the National Union of Mine Workers and Trade Union Solidarity, to encourage them to similarly postpone their applications. Well, the Chamber's Tebelo Chabane explains.
We are convinced that the mining charter will not lead to greater transformation in the mining sector as it stands. We can certainly put in place a better transformational tool that advances transformation, sets higher targets for the mining industry to achieve, which is fine, but one that actually advances transformation.
But which is contrary to what the Minister has been saying all along, that the reviewed mining charter is beneficial for black economic empowerment. So you disagreeing with that all
very much so. I mean, we view that this reviewed mining charter as something that would have actually just benefited the select few, certainly not the broad public. The important thing is that we start the process and we complete it. I mean, if it takes a few months to complete it and put in place a charter, so be it. It is just so important that we put in place a charter that will advance transformation. It's important that we get some kind of regulatory certainty in the mining sector. I just want to tell you why. I mean, we did a survey of our members and we asked them, you know, what would you do investment-wise if South Africa was in the top 25% in terms of the Fraser Institute's survey in terms of countries that people want to invest in and so forth, in terms of good governance, regulatory certainty and the like. 16 of our members responded and they said that they intend to spend about 145 billion in the country. If we were to get better regulatory certainty and so forth, they would be spending an additional 122 billion. We're talking an 84% increase in expenditure. That's just from 16 companies. So now imagine the rest of the mining industry and externally. If we get this right and actually put in place a proper charter, we will have much, much more investment in the country, which will help to grow the industry. So it is critically important that we do it and we get it right.
Well, Police Minister Fikile Mbalula says the police are closing the net on AJ Gupta and others. They are accused of corruption in the Estina Dairy Farm project. Of the 13 suspects, 8 have appeared in court and 5 are still being sought. The minister told SABC News that the other 5 are all out of the country. Well, according to him, Interpol will be asked to assist in tracking them down.
Arrest will be made anytime. The revolution will not be televised. Safe to say that there will be more arrests that will be made. Investigations have been undertaken without prejudice. The idea is there. It points to China, Dubai, India. So all of those areas will be the areas of focus for the police. From the point of view of the ministry, in terms of the bilaterals we have actually searched, we'll also seek for cooperation in that regard. But there is nothing that says they escaped, because they left on their own, probably on their own business, whatever that is the case. But now that they are basically sought, they will be sought and followed up in those countries where they've gone to. The world is very small. We operate through Interpol, we operate through bilateral. If ever you resist, there will be extradition. We have that with other countries, others we don't have. But all means necessary will be employed to ensure that these people are brought to book, because justice must be seen to be done.
Well, Afriforum says it is prepared to continue with the private prosecution of Duduzane Zuma should Sean Abrams and the National Prosecuting Authority again decide not to reinstate the charges against him. The NPA has announced that it's reviewing its decision not to prosecute Zuma over a crash in which Mekelina Duba was killed on the M1 in Johannesburg in 2014. Well, he's reported to have left the country just days before the NPA sent him a letter asking him to supply them with reasons as to why he should not be prosecuted for culpable homicide. Afriforum says it's also preparing to act if the NPA decides not to reinstate corruption charges against his father, a former President Jacob Zuma. NPA head Sean Abrams has given prosecutors until Friday to provide him with their recommendations on whether or not the former president should be prosecuted. Afriforum says a third case that it could decide to prosecute privately is that of advocate Nomgcobo Jiba. She had fraud and perjury charges against her dropped. Let's have a look at our question of the day that we're asking you here on SABC Newsroom this morning. We ask you, which minister do you think will not be making it into the new cabinet, of course, of the newly elected President Cyril Ramaphosa? Continue to send us your comments on @SABC Newsroom. We'll have a look at some of those comments coming in after the break. For now, though, do stay tuned to SABC Newsroom.
Technology is used for both positive and negative.
Some governments block the internet in times of protest.
With this internet blackout, it's impossible for me to do it, so I have to travel to Douala.
This act is a true violation of the rights of citizens.
In Africa, people are always coming up with innovative ways to use technology to solve some of their problems.
The more interesting piece of technology is actually the artificial intelligence.
AI, it's utilizing data to make your life easier.
On Network, we'll give you Africa's technology and social media news.
For all your technology news, join Siphumelele Zondi every Saturday at 17:30.
Welcome back to SABC Newsroom. Let's have a look, of course, our question of the day. Which minister do you think will not make it into the new cabinet is the question we're asking you this morning. Let's have a look at some of the tweets that have been coming in. Well, Comrade Tebe says, Batabile Dlamini, Faith Mutambi, Sebenze Zwane, David Mahlobo, Van Royen, Lynn Brown, Novula Mokonyane, and Lindiwe Zulu. Well, he has his whole list of ministers that he says will not make it. Tabo, however, says Maluse Gaba says that he will not. Thank you very much for sending in your tweets. Let's have a look at our poll question today. We ask you, will MDCT feel Tsvangirai's absence at the polls? Of course, with the passing of Tsvangirai this past week, 82% of you contributing in our polls say yes, 18% however are saying no. Let's have a look at some of the tweets behind that. Well, Comrade Tebe again says indeed 100% Tsvangirai was a good leader. And Tabo says yes, why not? Because this giant was a great of the greatest. Have a look at our social media of the day. Well, we'll start off with our picture of the day. This one comes in from Ezra Sibanda. South African disco music sensation Vusi Change collapsed and died. Vusi, popularly known as Big Daddy, rose to fame in the 90s with his hit song Stepmother. I'm devastated. Vusi was a good man. He just loved doing music. Have a look at our comment of the day. This one comes in from Anthea Gardner. I want to be there when the people start to turn it around, when they triumph over poverty. I want to be there when they win the battle against AIDS. I want to be there for the alcoholic, for the drug addict, for the victims of violence and abuse. I want to lend a hand. That came in from Esenre Masekela. Of course, such a beautiful quote coming in post Sona. Everybody watching that Sona address there by new President on the Ramaphosa. Let's have a look at what's happening online on our page this morning to Facebook. Well, today, Johannesburg Mayor Herman Mashaba has accused the African National Congress in the city of attempting to stop the insourcing of security personnel to protect lucrative security contracts handed to their tenderpreneurs. And then Afriforum is prepared to continue with the private prosecution of Duduzane Zuma should Sean Abrams and the National Prosecuting Authority again decide not to reinstate the charges against former President Jacob Zuma's son. And finally, 5-month-old bloodhound Shakira gambols through the long savanna grasses of Kenya's Masai Mara Reserve, her playful mood swiftly turning to keen determination as she is ordered to track a human scent. Simply search for SABC Newsroom on Facebook, follow us and interact with us. A joint sitting of both houses will begin a debate on the President's State of the Nation address, which was delivered on Friday night. The relationship between EFF and Ramaphosa is still volatile. What should be expected? We will be crossing there live as soon as the live proceedings begin. Afriforum vows to continue with private prosecution of Duduzane Zuma should the NPA decide otherwise. Nate Morgan Shangarai hailed for his role in bringing change in Zimbabwe's politics space. The resignation of Ethiopian Prime Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn continues to destabilize the country. Well, a joint sitting of both houses will begin a debate on President Cyril Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address that was delivered on Friday night. The debate will start at 10 o'clock and is expected to end after 8 in the evening. President Cyril Ramaphosa will only reply tomorrow. On Wednesday, the Finance Minister is set to table the budget. What is likely to happen? We are now joined by SABC's Lucanio Alata. Very good morning to you, Lucanio. Of course, huge developments that we've seen over the week. Then we had Sona being delivered on Friday, and now here we come Monday. What are we expecting in this hot and lively debate this morning?
Shante, good morning. Yes, I think last week was such a huge week politically for the Republic that, you know, the weekend was most welcome, particularly for us as journalists, because we were then able to get a little bit of rest, you know, getting ready for this week. What we expected this morning is obviously, you know, for the first time since at least I've been in Parliament, and that's been about 7 years now, that we're going to have a sitting on a Monday morning. You know, both houses, the National Assembly as well as the National Council of Provinces, will have a joint sitting to allow members of Parliament to obviously then debate the maiden Sona address by our new President Cyril Ramaphosa. We're likely to have 2 sessions today, the first one starting, as you've pointed out, at 10 o'clock, and that will probably run till about lunchtime, take a break, and then we have a resumption of proceedings from about 2 o'clock, taking us till about 8 o'clock this evening. Shante, you know, just based on what took place in the House last week, we do expect that the EFF will participate meaningfully in this debate. We don't expect them to be disruptive in any manner. I think they would want to obviously afford the new president, Mr. Ramaphosa, the opportunity for him to be able to build from previous State of the Nation addresses as well as the debate. So I think we can look forward to a resumption of normal duty, in just 30 minutes' time. Shante?
Kanyo, traditionally we do know that the debate usually takes place in the afternoon around 2 o'clock. Why essentially has everything been pushed forward?
Shante, I think all of this obviously stems from the fact that, the State of the Nation address had to be postponed by a week. And very crucially in that is the fact that the budget must be tabled on the 21st. So we only have about a 48-hour window period starting from this morning in which the debate on the State of the Nation address must take place so that the budget can then take place at its scheduled date, which is on Wednesday. Remember, the budget can't be postponed like the State of the Nation address was. There's such a lot of things that hinge on the budget taking place on time. Therefore, everything has been condensed into the next 2 days to obviously allow for the budget to take place as scheduled on Wednesday. Shante?
Now, what issues do you think the opposition parties are likely to capitalize on from President Ramaphosa's speech?
Shante, I think there's a couple of things. The first being, the issue of reducing the size of the cabinet. I think opposition parties will want to have a time and a date, and they would want the president to get around that issue very, very soon. I think then there's the issue of corruption. Obviously that's been dominating, particularly around the Guptas, Duduzane Zuma, the son of the former President Jacob Zuma. So opposition parties will also want, the new president to act quite firmly and very speedily on that matter. And then I think the issue of the expropriation of land without compensation, I think that's also an issue that opposition parties will press on, and that they will want some deadlines, some timelines, and that they would want, some clarity on just how quickly this new president, obviously, and his new administration will get going on those three key issues. I mean, if I can just highlight those three. Shante?
Lucanio, just give us a bit of a skeleton on how the program is set to play out this morning.
All right, well, Shante, the sitting will start at 10 o'clock, and then obviously the Speaker will then announce what the purpose or the agenda of the day is. And then, as the Democratic Alliance, I think, will be the first one to, to step up to the podium to start debating the President's speech, followed by the EFF. I think the morning session will be taken over, obviously, by the larger parties. So Democratic Alliance, EFF, IFP, NFP, and then obviously the ANC will also be worked in there in between the parties for them to obviously also say what their thoughts were on the President's State of the Nation address. And then in the afternoon, we're then likely to see the smaller parties, parties such as the United Democratic Movement, the African People's Convention, Agang SA. The smaller parties will then likely have their say on the State of the Nation address, in the afternoon. That will likely take us till about 8 o'clock this evening. And then tomorrow afternoon, Shante, the President, at about 2 o'clock, the President, Cyril Ramaphosa, will then reply to everything that these parties will say in their debates. Shante?
Definitely. Thank you very much for giving us that update for SABC News. Lucanio Qalata, live from Parliament in Cape Town, as to what we can expect for that post-Sona debate, which is set to start around 10 a.m. this morning. Moving on, Zimbabwe's opposition leader and former Prime Minister Morgan Tsvangirai is expected to be buried in his home village of Buhera in the east of the country tomorrow. The MDC leader died in a Johannesburg hospital last Wednesday at the age of 65 after a long battle with cancer. Well, figures across the political divide attended his memorial service at a church in the capital Harare yesterday. At a gathering of supporters mourning Tsvangirai, President Emmerson Mnangagwa spoke of his hope for peaceful elections later this year.
Let us all be brothers and sisters and come together and mourn our former Prime Minister. And with that spirit, let us move forward as a people and united for the development of our country.
The turmoil and uncertainty continues to haunt Ethiopia following the resignation of Prime Minister Hailemariam Desalegn on Thursday. The country's Defence Minister Siraj Fegesa has announced that the state of emergency will be enforced for the next 6 months. Fegesa also said that the emergency declaration could be extended for an additional 4 months. But he assured that the country would, of course, not attempt to take over the government during this military time.
The state of emergency follows the resignation of the Prime Minister, which sent shockwaves in the country. Parliament, where the four-party ruling coalition controls all 547 seats, is expected to ratify it within 2 weeks.
Yesterday, the Council of Ministers deliberated on the need of a declaration of the state of emergency and unanimously decided to declare it. It has been put in place as of yesterday evening.
Rights groups have often criticized the government of East Africa's biggest and fast-growing economy for clamping down on political opponents and the media.
In order to keep the public and the citizens' peace and tranquility, it is forbidden to stage demonstrations. Anyone who conceives or coordinates or violates is suspected of participating in criminal acts against the Constitution and can be detained without a court warrant.
Since January, Ethiopia has released more than 6,000 prisoners charged with taking part in mass protests. It has also closed down a jail where activists allege torture took place. Many of the prisoners took part in anti-government protests in 2015 and 2016 in the country's two most populous provinces. The demonstrations began against a government plan to expand the capital Addis Ababa, but morphed into greater demands for civil rights. The government previously imposed a state of emergency in October 2016, which was lifted in August 2017. During that time, curfews were in place, there were restrictions on movement, and around 29,000 people were detained.
A joint sitting of both houses will begin a debate on the President's State of the Nation address, which was delivered on Friday. The relationship between EFF and Ramaphosa is still volatile. What should be expected? Well, we're just going to have to wait and see come 10 o'clock this morning.
We cannot be part of an illegitimate, illegal process. And
chaotic scenes we've grown accustomed to.
He listens to ill advice from illiterates like things like this.
A not so warm welcome for the new president.
Yes. Hambani, you may call us illiterate. Pumani.
Will today's Sona debate survive such disruptions?
For rolling coverage, catch Newsroom from 9 to 12 p.m. on DSTV 404.
And they call me illiterate when they are the ones who are illiterate.
Greetings from the sports desk. Let's update your sports news. India completed another dominant performance over South Africa in the first T20 International at the Wanderers Stadium. Shikhar Dhawan and Bhuvneshwar Kumar were mainly responsible for India's 28-run win, just 2 days after the tourists completed a 5-1 thrashing of host in one-day international series.
Despite the too early dismissal and the end of the power play in the 6th over, Indian batters continued imposing themselves, and after 9 overs the touring side were on 106 for 2. That was soon followed by the wicket of danger man Virat Kohli, the Indian skipper given out for an LBW decision from the bowling of Tabrez Shamsi. Opener Shikhar Dhawan helped himself to 72 runs from 39 balls before being caught by Hendrik Klaasen from the bowling of Andile Phehlukwayo. The latter's innings proved instrumental in propelling India to a total of 203 for the loss of 5 wickets after 20 overs. In contrast to India's innings, South Africa got their reply off to a somewhat slow start. At the end of the first power play, after 6 opening overs, South Africa were on 41 for 2, scoring at a rate of 6.83 runs per over, while India at the same time had managed 78 for 2 with a run rate of 13 per over. Despite South Africa trying to up the ante in the second part of their innings, at the end of their 50 overs, they fell short by 28 runs. Joseph Mohali, SABC News.
And staying with the cricket news, South Africa's national women's cricket team produced a solid all-round performance to defeat India's women by 5 wickets in their third T20 match at the Wanderers Stadium. A career-best 5 for 30 from Seema Shabnul Ismail helped the Proteas bundled India out for 133 runs in their 17th over. And the middle order shared the spoils to guide South Africa to their target win over to spare.
It was a must-win clash for the Proteas women to keep the 5-match series alive. India won the first 2 matches at Senvest Park and Buffalo Park comprehensively by 9 and 7 wickets respectively. Captain Dane van Niekerk won the toss and elected to field, and South Africa's quick bowlers didn't need to be asked twice. Marizanne Cup set the tone with the prize scalp of India's best batswoman, Mithali Raj, for a duck in the first over. Shabnam Ismail then took up the mantle. Ismail started with 2 wickets in her first over, reducing India to 90 for 4 by the 12th over. Masabata Claas complimented Ismail almost perfectly with 2 scalps of her own as the pair teamed up to bowl India out for 133 inside their 20 overs. The Indians lost their last 5 wickets for the addition of just 9 runs, as Ismail earned the Woman of the Match award for her career best 5 for 30, the second best figures for a South African woman. Opener van Niekerk got South Africa's chase off to a belligerent start, smashing 26 runs from just 20 deliveries. But it was the big hitters, Sune Luce and Chloe Tryon, who simply bullied the Indian bowling attack. Luce clumped 41 from just 34 deliveries, while Tryon's 80 from just 9 deliveries set up the Proteas' victory.
Out of the ground. Wow, what a shot.
The next match also precedes the men's clash at Centurion on Wednesday afternoon. Samantha Mari, SABC News.
And to the tennis news, South Africa's Kevin Anderson has reached a career high of 9 in the world. The lanky player won his first tour-level title since 2015 in New York this weekend to move up in the world standings. Anderson moved up to 2 places with his 4th ATP World Tour title after beating Sam Querrey 4-6, 6-3, 7-6. And it's all about the tennis ranking this morning as a familiar name returns to the top, making history too. Roger Federer, at age 36, this weekend became the oldest world #1 after what he called a very special week in Rotterdam. Federer won his 3rd Rotterdam Open in the Netherlands when he defeated sluggish Grigor Dimitrov 6-2, 6-2. It took Federer less than an hour to dismantle the Dimitrov game. The Swiss maestro broke Dimitrov in the 5th game of the first set, and that was it for the set. Federer centered to 6-2, barely breaking a sweat. The second set took a similar pattern, with Federer getting a break as early as the second game. Very little resistance came from Dimitrov, and Federer picked up his 97th career title.
It's been unbelievable. I can't believe it. I got my 97th title, back to world #1 after all these years. It's definitely one of those weeks I will never forget in my life, so very, very special.
American Bubba Watson, who won the Genius Open golf tournament on the US PGA Tour, considered retirement after a slump in form last year. But those thoughts are now on the back burner after he claimed a comfortable victory at the PGA Tour event in California. He finished on a 12 under par 272, 2 strokes clear of his countrymen Kevin Na and Tenny Finau.
Watson holed a bunker shot on the 14th, setting the stage for a long-awaited win. He carded a final round 2 under par 69 to finish on 12 under par overall and bag an emotional 3rd victory at the Riviera Country Club.
The way I putted the front nine, I just felt like the greens were going to be faster. They weren't, so I had a couple 3-putts, even though one was just off the green. It doesn't count as a 3-putt. So I just kept fighting and knew that I could do it if I just keep my head down and keep focused on my job.
While considering retirement last year, the former Masters champion credits a change in thinking for his 10th PGA Tour win.
I don't know about you guys, but I am thrilled. I never thought I could get there. So you try to set something that you never think you can get to. And if I got to it, that's my Hall of Fame. If y'all vote me in or don't vote me in, I could care less. That doesn't matter to me. I got my 10 wins. Nobody thought Bubba Watson from Baghdad, Florida would ever get to 10 wins. Let's be honest. Without lessons, head case, hooking the ball, slicing the ball, can't putt, Somehow we're here.
Na finished joint second with Finau. He completed the final day on 2 under as well. His round included 5 birdies and 3 bogeys. Liesel Sankel, SABC News.
Let's talk some domestic football news. Highlands Park are favourites to gain automatic promotion to the Absa Premiership at the end of this season. They thumped Jomo Cosmos by 4-0 to gain a 9-point cushion at the top of the First National Division log in a match played at the Voslora Stadium. In another match, Super Eagles held with Bank Spurs to a 1-1 draw in Gobble Park in Bethlehem.
Witbank Spurs took on the Super Eagles following their win against Real Kings. In their last 3 matches, they have managed 1 loss, a draw and a win. Spurs failed to consolidate their win and allowed the Eagles to come back and force a 1-1 draw in the second half. National First Division runaway log leaders Highlands Park kept the same team that won 4-0 against Royal Eagles. They came into this match topping the log standings with 41 points. The Lions of the North showed their intention to stretch their lead with a contender for the goal of the season scored by Mutobi Mvala. Peter Shalulile added the second goal to dash Cosmos's hopes of a comeback in this first half.
Highlands Park double their advantage and another goal. This time it's Peter Shalulile.
It was one-way traffic in the second half as Highlands Park scored 2 more goals.
3-0.
Jomo Cosmos needed to win this match to keep Highlands Park in check. Themba Shiba, SABC News.
And of course, we are asking you on our sports this morning, just to get to understand the kind of weekend that you have when it comes to sporting weekend. So let's get to see what you have to say on this. The first one coming from Sikha Montigo, saying Roger Federer regaining #1 spot on ATP rankings, at Man United winning, at Real Madrid winning, at lastly, Kaizer Chiefs winning, #SABC News. Siafana Zulu says that my team at Kaizer Chiefs beat Cape Town City and moved to position 2 on the log. And those are some of your comments, of course, but do keep sending them in and we'll definitely make sure that we get to read them. But that's how we come to the end of your sports bulletin at this hour. Up next is Peg Nene standing by with your weather update.
Well, thank you very much. It is indeed time to take a look at your weather. Starting off with the satellite image and what is happening currently. We're seeing a lot of cloud here over Angola, Tanzania, and down towards Zambia and Zimbabwe, and of course eastern Botswana. But over Namibia and the western parts of southern Africa, I'm just talking about the Northern Cape and Western Cape province, we're seeing clear skies. But this cloud band here that's sitting over the central interior is expected to move just towards the eastern part. We're already seeing clearing in places in the northern parts of Pretoria and of course in places in KwaZulu-Natal where we did see some showers overnight. Since we did see some showers overnight here over the central and eastern parts of the country, you can expect the day here in Gauteng to be quite cool and cloudy for most of the day, with the possibility of some thunderstorms later on in the afternoon. It is 60% over the eastern parts of the country, but 30% over the central interior. Only isolated thunderstorms expected later on this afternoon. While clear skies continue here from Namibia down towards the southernmost tip part in the Cape Point. And looking at your rainfall output, we're still expecting some heavier rains here in central Zimbabwe into the eastern parts of Botswana, while it continues with rain in Angola as it has been. And looking at tomorrow's, still seeing those clear skies over the western part hot. Clear skies in Springbok leading to 29 in terms of your maximum temperatures. Cape Town cooler today, 26, while along the coastal areas we're still getting those fairly warm temperatures of 25 in PE. Durban peaking at 27 today, while Mbombela is at 28. And moving further north, we're seeing Polokwane at 28 with those scattered showers expected today. Remember, it is quite cloudy over the eastern parts of the country, including places like Maputo, here in the southern parts of Mozambique, where we're expecting a bit of a heavier rains for today. But we're expecting more of those heavy rains as well here in places like Bulawayo, closer towards Francistown in the Botswana side, leaving the central parts of Botswana like Maun and down towards Gaborone with only isolated thunderstorms. Here in Namibia, we're expecting clear skies today with a high of 31 in Windhoek, but fairly clear skies for the whole country. And looking at Madagascar, once again, some rainfall is expected with a high of 31 in the extreme northern parts in Mahajanga. And coming back, we're seeing now clearing of rain along the coastal areas. All the rains here for the next couple of days are expected to move towards the interior, of Tanzania, the interior of Kenya, and of course, as we can see, Kigali is peaking at 23 for tomorrow. And looking at West Africa's central parts, we're expecting rains to continue in the Central African Republic and the DRC, with highs of 28 for both Brazzaville and Kinshasa. Bangui peaking at 33 degrees for tomorrow. And looking at the northern parts, now we're starting to see Ethiopia with some onshore flow bringing about some rains over the interior, especially over the high-lying areas. But of course, here over the northern parts, we continue with these rains, but only along the coastal areas, leaving behind just all these large areas of clear skies. But it's starting to come back here in West Africa. Fortunately, that's all I have in terms of your weather. Remember to take the weather with you wherever you go.
Special assignment. Crime keeps the society in terror and pain. Why so?
If someone phones me, tells me, okay, look, you need a solver, and I get you all driving, I'll take it.
What pushes normal people to be so hard, heartless, and brutally kill one another?
The other side of it could be more for their own psychological need. It might be part of a sexual fantasy that they have. It could be about power and control.
After proper investigation is followed, the perpetrator gets arrested.
It's quite a massive process. And ultimately, they have payments. I think justice is served.
Emotional scars remain.
We would pay any price to get him back, and the sad reality is that it's gone.
Special assignment. We unravel the truth every Sunday at 21:30.
We're shooting a campaign. We're telling genuine stories from real people that have been affected by the SABC. It's also interesting to get the backstory in terms of their dreams to be on screen and eventually getting the pleasure to do that. And understanding that they're communicating on a platform that speaks to millions of people. It speaks to how the SABC can fulfill its mandate.
The SABC represents the opportunity for so many young South Africans, for old South Africans, to be able to look at the world that they may not experience any other way.
People should continue to pay their TV license because it allows the SABC to bring quality programming.
The TV license is really part of the lifeblood of the channel and the corporation.
When you're listening to your favorite jams, you're listening to your favorite radio DJ, you must know that you made it possible by paying your TV license.
It's such a holistic process that goes into TV licenses. It's not only one part where we say South Africans have to pay for TV licenses. You pay a TV license because you get so much value out of it, and that's the content that you get every single day on the SABC platforms.
I have been in the film industry now for 51 years. I am quite satisfied with the evolution of television now, that you have got a lot of actors and you have got a lot of crew members, which will also play part of paying our licenses, because I think it's proper.
Well, indeed, a very good morning to you. Welcome to SABC Newsroom. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Shante Yankee.
Greetings from the sports desk. My name is Marumu Kekana.
Let's have a look at your headlines this morning. Well, members of Parliament will any minute from now debate Ramaphosa's maiden State of the Nation address. Mining stakeholders welcome the postponement of a court application challenging the reviewed mining charter. And Interpol roped in as the manhunt for Ajay Gupta intensifies.
And from the sports desk, India completes yet another dominant performance over South Africa in their first T20 international leg to complete a 5-1 win in a one-day international series.
Indeed, here on Newsroom this morning, coming up to you live from Auckland Park in Johannesburg. A lot we can expect between now and 12 p.m, including the live coverage of the Sona debate, all your views on all of our top stories, as well as the latest news from our continent and the world over. Your top story this hour, members of Parliament are returning to Cape Town earlier than usual this week. This morning, a joint sitting of both houses will begin a debate on the President's State of the Nation address, which was delivered on Friday. The debate will end this evening. President Cyril Ramaphosa will reply tomorrow. On Wednesday, the Finance Minister will also table the budget. Parliamentary committees resume with 28 meetings scheduled for the week. Tomorrow, the Minister of Communications will brief the Portfolio Committee on the Shareholder Compact and the Memorandum of Incorporation of the SABC. And then on Wednesday, the Mineral Resources Committee will hear the responses of Minister Mosebenzi Zwane on the state capture allegations. Meanwhile, I earlier spoke to our reporter Lucanio Kalata, who gave us an update of what we can expect from the National Assembly this morning.
Last week was such a huge week politically for the Republic that, the weekend was most welcome, particularly for us as journalists, because we were then able to get a little bit of rest, getting ready for this week. What we expected this morning is obviously, for the first time since at least I've been in Parliament, and that's been about 7 years now, that we're going to have a sitting on a Monday morning. Both houses, the National Assembly, as well as the National Council of Provinces will have a joint sitting to allow members of Parliament to obviously then debate the maiden Sona address by our new President Cyril Ramaphosa. We're likely to have two sessions today, the first one starting, as you've pointed out, at 10 o'clock, and that will probably run till about lunchtime, take a break, and then we have a resumption of proceedings from about 2 o'clock, taking us till about 8 o'clock this evening. Shante, just based on what took place in the House last week, we do expect that the EFF will participate meaningfully in this debate. We don't expect them to be disruptive in any manner. I think they would want to obviously afford the new president, Mr. Ramaphosa, the opportunity for him to be able to build from previous State of the Nation addresses as well as the debate. So I think we can look forward to a resumption of normal duty, in just 30 minutes' time. Shante?
Kanyo, traditionally we do know that the debate usually takes place in the afternoon around 2 o'clock. Why essentially has everything been pushed forward?
Shante, I think all of this obviously stems from the fact that, the State of the Nation address had to be postponed by a week. And very crucially in that is the fact that the budget must be tabled on the 21st. So we only have about a 48-hour window period starting from this morning in which the debate on the State of the Nation address must take place so that the budget can then take place at its scheduled date, which is on Wednesday. Remember, the budget can't be postponed like the State of the Nation address was. There's such a lot of things that that hinge on the budget taking place on time. Therefore, everything has been condensed into the next 2 days to obviously allow for the budget to take place as scheduled on Wednesday. Shante?
Now, what issues do you think the opposition parties are likely to capitalize on from President Ramaphosa's speech?
Shante, I think there's a couple of things. The first being, the issue of reducing the size of the cabinet. I think opposition parties will want to have a time and a date, and they would want the president to get around that issue very, very soon. I think then there's the issue of corruption. Obviously that's been dominating, particularly around the Guptas and Duduzane Zuma, the son of the former President Jacob Zuma. So opposition parties will also want, the new president to act quite firmly and very speedily on that matter. And then I think the issue of the expropriation of land without compensation, I think that's also an issue that opposition parties will press on, and that they will want some deadlines, some timelines, and that they would want, some clarity on just how quickly this new president, obviously, and his new administration will get going on those three key issues. I mean, if I can just highlight those three. Shante?
Look, can you just give us a bit of a skeleton on how the program is set to play out this morning?
All right, well, Shante, the sitting will start at 10 o'clock, and then obviously the speaker will then announce what the purpose or the agenda of the day is. And then, as the Democratic Alliance, I think, will be the first one to, to step up to the podium to start debating the president's speech, followed by the EFF. I think the morning session will be taken over, obviously, by the larger parties. So Democratic Alliance, EFF, IFP, NFP, and then obviously the ANC will also be worked in there in between the parties for them to obviously also say what their thoughts were on the president's State of the Nation address. And then in the afternoon, we're then likely to see the smaller parties, parties such as the United Democratic Movement, the African People's Convention, Agang SA. The smaller parties will then likely have their say on the State of the Nation address, in the afternoon. That will likely take us till about 8 o'clock this evening. And then tomorrow afternoon, Shante, the president, at about 2 o'clock, the president, Cyril Ramaphosa, will then reply to everything that these parties will say in their debates.
The joint sitting of both houses of Parliament are set to begin to debate the President's State of the Nation address. Let's cross over live.
Will be considered at the appropriate time. Honourable members, we have also learned of the passing on after a short illness of Mrs. Connie Bapela, the wife of Deputy Minister Obed Bapela, and we convey our condolences to the Bapela family. The Secretary will read the order of the day.
Debate on the President's State of the Nation address.
Honourable members, I have received a copy of the President's address delivered at the joint sitting on the 16th of February, 2018. The speech has been printed in the minutes of the joint sitting. Now, before I turn to the list of speakers, I wish to share a message I got on Friday night, immediately after receiving the President's speech. I quote, "Do tell President Cyril how touched the Masikelas are by his tribute to Hugh. My brother is smiling. It was a brave and rousing speech. So much work to be done. Sis Barbara. This is a message I got from Sis Barbara. I now call upon the Honorable, the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Honorable Speaker, the National Chair of the Council of Provinces, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa, Honorable Cyril Ramaphosa, members of Parliament from both houses, it is an honor for us to stand here today. But we also stand here proud of being a South African. We stand here this morning in great shock and deep sadness after having learned about the passing of our Member of Parliament in the National Assembly, Comrade Beatrice Ngobo, yesterday. Ngobo had recently undergone surgery and regrettably did not recover. Her untimely departure is a heavy blow to the ANC caucus and to Parliament. We will miss her contribution, particularly in this new dawn. Honourable Speaker and the Chair of the National Council of Provinces, as the ANC caucus, in honour of Comrade Beatrice Ngobo and many other public representatives from this House who have passed on, we commit our full support and to work together with His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa, on continuing on the vision of Madiba to building a South Africa of our dreams. We publicly say to the people of South Africa, as ANC caucus and members of this Parliament, South Africa, we are ready to Matina. On Monday, Honourable Speaker, the 9th of May 1994 at 11, in this chamber of the National Assembly, Umama uNontsikelelo Albertina Sisulu was a member of Parliament then, a stalwart of our struggle who is remembered for her strength, compassion, and tireless commitment to the people of this country. A prominent leader of the ANC Women's League, Federation of South African Women, and the United Democratic Front, who represented the epitome of selfless service to the people, her outstanding contribution to the cause of freedom and democracy rose to nominate Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela as our first democratically elected president. Our newly elected president, His Excellency, President Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, rose to second that nomination 24 years ago. Only one candidate was nominated on that day, namely Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, who was duly elected the first president of the Republic of South Africa in a democratic order. On the 24th of May of that same year, Nelson Mandela gave his first and the first State of the Nation address in this chamber. I quote from his speech, open quotes. "The time will come when our nation will honor the memory of all sons, the daughters, the mothers, the fathers, the youth, and the children who by their thoughts and deeds gave us the right to assert with pride that we are South Africans, that we are Africans, and that we are citizens of the world." On this Monday, the 19th of February 2018, 24 years later, we celebrate the centenary of the late Mama Albertina Sisulu and the late Tata Nelson Mandela under the presidency of Cyril Ramaphosa as the 5th democratically elected president of the Republic of South Africa. Today we stand at the edge of a new dawn, full of hope and possibilities, full of optimism. A new dawn that recognizes that we, The people of South Africa recognize the injustices of our past, honor those who suffered for justice and freedom in our land, respects those who have worked to build and develop our country. And borrowing from the words of the Freedom Charter, this preamble of our Constitution that we are quoting from also goes on to say, we believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. As we stand here to debate the historic State of the Nation address as delivered by President Cyril Ramaphosa last Friday, we join him in thanking former President Jacob Zuma for his years of service to the liberation of our country and his contribution in building our young democracy. Sithi siyabonga nqamalala. As we sat in this house on Friday evening, we could feel the spirit of Nelson Mandela amongst us. A Sona delivered which laid out his vision for the Republic of South Africa, a vision wherein South Africa is a place for all who live in it. I quote from his speech delivered in this parliament in 1995. The nation has set itself the task of reconstruction and development, nation building and reconciliation. It expects from its public representatives in these hallowed chambers the seriousness of purpose and the application of duty which success requires. On my part, I call on all parties to join us in working for a better life for all South Africans. That's what Madiba said, I close quote. Thus, the task of a democratically elected government is to focus on the agenda of reconstruction and development to address the great social needs. The agenda will thus reflect this as a developmental state requires an approach which acknowledges the need for fundamental transformation of society socially and economically. When we assess the state of the nation, we are essentially providing a framework for analyzing where we are as a nation. These important concepts in the analysis are social cohesion, social capital, and social justice. Social cohesion refers to the extent to which a society is coherent, united, and functional in providing an environment within which its citizens can grow, develop, and reach their potential. In our pursuit of social cohesion, our mission remains the revival of an activist citizenry engaged in patriotism and nation building. We thus welcome the President's announcement of a social sector summit during the course of this year in recognizing the critical role of NGOs and community-based organizations in tackling poverty, inequality, and related social problems. Social capital refers to the assets accumulated based on trust, which enable people to work together to achieve common goals. The President's announcement of the implementation of the national minimum wage bears testimony to what is possible when all social partners work together in the interest of our great nation. In his Sona, the President committed to engaging all stakeholders on the mining charter to ensure that it is truly an effective instrument to sustainably transform the face of mining in South Africa. We therefore welcome yesterday's announcement that the Chamber of Mines will postpone its court application in respect of the reviewed mining charter to allow parties the space to engage and find an amicable solution in resolving the impasse. Honorable Speaker, it is through the spirit of ongoing engagements on critical matters that we shall be a nation at one. The ANC commits to the people of South Africa that we shall isolate and root out corrupt tendencies in the public and private sectors. We echo the sentiments shared by President Ramaphosa. We open quotes, "Amasela atshontsha imali kahulumeni mawabanjwe." We are with you there. Delegates to the 54th National Conference committed themselves to play a more proactive role in enhancing the values and integrity of the movement and society to act decisively where there are breaches.
Point of order.
Honorable Ndlozi, what's the point of order? Take your seat, Honorable Chief Whip.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The President Ramaphosa never said that sentence, ever. So the Honorable Chief Whip is deliberately misleading the House. Honorable Ramaphosa never said, he was too scared to say Amabosho Mawabanji.
No, Honorable Member.
He deliberately jumped that line when he was reading his speech. So Honorable Jackson Mutembu must not mislead the country and the people of South. That line is not there.
Seat, Honorable
It's not true.
Let Honorable Chief Whip continue.
This year, as we celebrate the centenary of the birth of Utata Nelson Mandela, our icon, we shall intensify our efforts to realize his vision of a united South Africa in which all live in peace with equal rights and opportunities. We shall renew our focus on Comrade Mandela's vision of a non-racial society in which the social and economic barriers that have separated black from white are broken down. We shall redouble our efforts to build a society in which black poverty and white privilege are consigned to the past, replaced by respect, solidarity, and non-racial equality. We shall place at the top of our agenda Madiba's vision of a non-sexist society in which the oppression and exploitation of women, whether in the workplace, in communities, or in the home, is eradicated. We shall make it our daily mission to work towards a society where women do not live in fear for their lives, where our daughters, I've got many, can walk the streets at night without fear of violence meted against them. We shall work to rekindle Madiba's vision of a democratic society in which all citizens have equal opportunity to determine their own destiny. While it is undeniable that the ANC has made significant strides in meeting the basic needs of our people, it is equally true that the legacy of colonialism and apartheid still remains deeply entrenched in our society. We therefore require a program of fundamental and radical socio-economic transformation that will ensure that, in the words of President Mandela, political freedom goes side by side, I open quotes, with freedom from hunger, want, and suffering. Fundamentally, we are determined to build an economy that reverses apartheid injustices and corrects continuing patterns of deprivation and inequality. It is for this reason that the resolution adopted at our 54th National Conference of the ANC focused on the measures we need to take now to significantly advance growth, development, and transformation. What does this then mean for our work here in Parliament? For the remainder of this fifth Parliament, in context of our new dawn, as heralded by our President's speech, renewed hope and optimism, things need to continue to change in the direction we have been driving for the past 2 years. Kufanele zijike izinto ngempela. The leadership we are calling for must be one of a principled nature across political parties, where ethics and integrity are the dominant factor and not narrow party politics. As Parliament, we must not and cannot ever be found on the side of having done wrongdoing under our watch. We as public representatives, we carry the hopes and aspirations of the people who elected us into office. We dare not fail them. Public representatives here in the People's Tribune should undertake their responsibilities with efficiency, diligence, and integrity, and without fear or favor. By example, we need to lead, instill a new discipline to do things correctly, to do them completely, and to do them timelessly, so that the activist parliament that the ANC speaks of achieves even greater outputs that have a qualitative and positive impact on the lives of our people. Accountability and performance monitoring will become the order of the day. The tasks set out in the State of the Nation address will require even greater oversight and capacity if the objectives of the commitments outlined by the President are to be met. These commitments are not some abstract, reduced to fielding questions to the President on a quarterly basis. These commitments directly involve this Parliament to be able to execute its constitutional responsibilities to the maximum through oversight, research, analysis of reports, and connecting with our people at a far higher level. This will have to be driven by empirical evidence, taking decisions on the balance of this empirical evidence, enhancing and cutting-edge support to members in a manner that Parliament is a reflection of strategic value add as an arm of state. For this to happen, Parliament cannot continue to be treated as a government department, whilst it is an arm of state. We are thus calling for the review of the funding methodology for all three arms of the state, wherein funding of Parliament is not dependent on the very same executive arm of state it ought to be conducting oversight over. It is through the repositioning of Parliament as a strategic value-add arm of state that we too can join into the hymn of the legendary Huma Sigela of Tumami, especially because as Parliament, sithunywe ngumzansi Afrika ukuthi sibahole abantu basemzansi to the promised land that Madiba envisioned. The independence of Parliament as an arm of state remains sacrosanct. We must therefore review the role of the State Security Agency in the business of Parliament. Though something as minute as the assistance of the State Security Agency during Sona might not be an issue in itself, it does, however, speak to the total and complete independence of Parliament as a separate arm of state. The integrity of state bodies that report to Parliament must receive heightened and vigorous oversight so that they perform their function both in the interest of the state but also in the interest of the masses of our people. Within the era of hope and optimism, Parliament must bring an end to fruitless, wasteful, and non-expenditure by government departments and entities. A total of 127.979 billion in irregular expenditure was uncovered by the Auditor General from 2013-2014 till the 2016-2017 financial years. These monies wasted by careless and corrupt people in government could have gone towards funding free higher education for the poor. It is for this reason that Parliament will, in the next coming weeks, finalize legislation which seeks to give the Auditor General more teeth to decisively deal with those who waste our hard-earned taxpayers' money, with an intention of having such monies recouped and those responsible being held personally liable. The integrity of SARS, state-owned enterprises, and government departments must result in a more accountable, functioning, and capable state. Thus, we welcome the intervention set out by the President to address some of the challenges experienced in our revenue collection entity. Our SOEs, and particularly, welcome the announcement of the review of the size and configuration of government departments. We have an outstanding task of finalizing the configuration of our Chapter 9 institutions. As set out in the 2007 report of the ad hoc committee on the review of Chapter 9 institutions, which was led by the late Comrade Kada Asma. Given that these bodies report here in Parliament and that we have a specific office based in Parliament to support the Chapter 9 bodies, we need to be far more vigorous in scrutinizing what the Constitution expects from them. The high-level panel report, headed by former President Kgalema Motlanthe, looking into legislation passed since 1994, has concluded this report and handed the report over to Parliament. We now have to deliberate on this and take decisions. There are profound recommendations, and these require our collective thought. In conclusion, Honorable Speaker, the State of the Nation address specifically tasked Parliament to speed up the conclusion on a number of pieces of legislation. For example, the MPRDA, the Expropriation Bill, revised legislation on the Auditor General, and the Political Parties Funding Bill put forward as examples. We call upon these committees to apply their minds as a matter of urgency. We are encouraged by the President's call in the State of the Nation address that he will work with Parliament and all parties in the interest of serving our people better and more qualitatively. It is only through working together that we can realize a united, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic, and prosperous society. Let us unite behind a common vision of a South Africa of Nelson Mandela, a South Africa of Albertina Sisulu. Let their memories live on through our hard work and commitment to serving this great nation of ours. In this, we cannot fail. Long live the undying spirit of Utata Nelson Mandela, long live. Long live the undying spirit of Umama Albertina Sisulu, long live. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable, the Leader of the Opposition.
Madam Speaker, Honorable President, honorable members of this House, fellow South Africans, Bagaetso, Dumelang. E re pele ke tswela pele ke romela matshidiso go lekoko la African National Congress le lelapa la go Ngcobo ka go latlhegelwa ke mme Ngcobo ke a re a robale ka kgotso. On Friday night, we all stood up to applaud the President after his State of the Nation address. And I'll be honest with you, it felt good. It felt good to be a member of this august House with its dignity restored. It felt good to be a member of the opposition, knowing that in fact our efforts in the last decades have not been in vain. Most of all, it felt good to be a South African. Besis Kenya. It felt good to be a citizen of this beautiful country, exciting country with all of its challenges, with all of the hope in the face of adversity. I can recall when I looked up at the gallery and I saw former President Mbeki, I was reminded of his timeless words when we signed our constitution into law. We are all Africans, every single one of us. And when I saw former Deputy President F.W. de Klerk, I recalled the spirit of reconciliation that still runs deep in our veins as we celebrate Madiba's 100th year. Nelson Mandela's generosity of spirit and his extraordinary leadership when faced with tough choices inspired so many of us to take up the fight for a free, fair, and a prosperous society. We may sit on different sides of this house, but I hope that all of us here are here because we want to build a South Africa we can hand over to our children. Fellow South Africans, we are presented with a unique window of opportunity. We have removed a corrupt, broken president from office. Our task now is to fix the broken country he has left behind. President Ramaphosa has promised the people of South Africa a new dawn. I really believe that this is what he wants for South Africa. It is certainly what we want for South Africa. And I want to pledge my support and the support of our party towards the realization of this goal. Ons moet almal saamwerk. Fellow South Africans, we live in a democracy. And a democracy is a contestation of ideas to build a better society. Democracies carry with it the implicit acknowledgement that humans do make mistakes, that we are fallible, and that in fact nobody has a monopoly on truth. Democracy is not a war. It is not a fight to the death between people who look different or think different. We are not enemies. We are opponents. When we differ, we must say so, and we must be robust in our disagreements if necessary. The time, fellow South Africans, has come to fix South Africa together. President Ramaphosa faces a difficult task, and he will need all of our help. We need to do everything we can to make sure that this new dawn is not a false dawn. Our president has inherited a broken education system in which, in fact, militant union interests are placed before the interests of our children. He has inherited an economy where millions of young people cannot find work and have given up looking for work. He has inherited a corrupt state that has been captured to serve the interests of a few at the expense of the many. And he has inherited a governing party that is deeply divided, severely limiting his room to maneuver. We understand these constraints. And we understand why he was unable to present a meaningful agenda for reform on Friday night. Summits, workshops, and conferences may be enough to buy the president some time, but they certainly won't be enough to fix South Africa. To fix what is broken, we need to move from talk to action as quickly as possible. We need to move beyond the policy paralysis that has held our nation hostage. We need our president to make the tough choices that can put us back on the right path. Fellow South Africans, this begins with education. We have to acknowledge that our education system is, in fact, in crisis. It is not possible to read, quite painfully so, that in fact, in the latest global tests, 4 out of 5 of our boys and girls cannot read with meaning by the end of grade 3. The message is loud and clear. We have failed to set our children up for a future that they deserve. We can talk about the 4th industrial revolution. We must prepare them for the revolution that is going on now, fellow South Africans. Learners in our poorer schools cannot compete with our peers in their richer schools. And this, Mr. President, is in fact reinforcing inequality. There is no single reason for the failure of our education system. We must acknowledge the role of SADU in it. Minister Mochega's ministerial task team found that 6 out of the 9 provincial education departments have been captured by SADU bosses, and that education is failing in those provinces because of SADU's toxic influence. And so, Mr. President, your first choice is to end state capture by SADU, the same powerful and militant union that helped you rise to the presidency of the ANC. Honorable members, when our students leave school, they need to find work. But half of our young people under the age of 35 are still unemployed. So we support the President's call for more internship and apprenticeships. On-the-job training is more powerful means to upskill our young people and prepare them for the world of work. But the fact remains, we have to create meaningful work for them to do. And this means that we have to grow our economy at the rate required to absorb young people into the labor market. We need to start, I'm going to help you. We need to start by making it easier for young people to access jobs by confronting nepotism, bribery, and corruption that stands in their way. I believe, Honorable Member, that if we give young people a year of civilian service in the public sector, in sectors like education, healthcare, and policing, we could help thousands of school leavers have crucial work experience and possibly kickstart their careers. But we equally, Honorable Members, need to be careful to monitor the impact of the national minimum wage on the employment prospects of young people. We need to make sure that young job seekers are not left behind. We need to consider wide exemptions for small businesses from minimum wage exemption, and also exempting young entrants into the labor market, Mo President. Speaker, the President recommitted the government to the national health insurance in his address. Now we share the global affordable goal for quality healthcare for all. But the question is whether we can afford to double healthcare expenditure at a time when our budget deficit has ballooned to 4.3% of GDP. Sometimes, Jagantate Nelson Mandela showed us, the toughest choices of all is to abandon something you have invested a lot of time and effort in. The truth is that NHI undermines our excellent world-class healthcare sector. It will cause an exodus of South Africa's brilliant nurses and doctors who are in high demand all over the world. And it is, Honorable Members, whether we like it or not, entirely unaffordable, even for nations that are far wealthier than ours. Mr. President, we cannot confront healthcare without confronting the deep pain and sorrow of the eSitimeni tragedy. Mr. President, I am an uncle of a disabled niece. She lives in Gauteng, and it would have been very possible for her to have ended up in one of the NGOs. All I can say sitting here today is that thank God she didn't. I really believe when Minister Aaron Motsoaledi described what took place there, he described it as a crime reminiscent of apartheid. Mr. President, I hope, and you will have my absolute support, that those who are responsible for the tragedy of killing our people in Life eSitimeni, both the officials and the politicians that were involved, will be held to account in the ultimate level possible. There are many reasons why it happened, but we also know that public sector salaries that reward accountability and delivering good services. At this point in time, 587 billion rands this year, the public sector wage are more than half of our entire budget and are way above other emerging economies. This, Honorable Members, is not sustainable. The President has to resist the pressure from the public sector, unions, and curb this wage bill. Honorable Members, I also welcome the President's commitment to reduce the size of his cabinet. At 35 ministries, each with a deputy ministers, ours is one of the most bloated governments in the world. We, in fact, have already done work in this, and I believe, Mo Presidente, it is possible to run an executive with 15 ministries with spending priorities that promote economic growth and job creation. If we have your cabinet, we can save 4.7 billion rands. Now, I know this is hard because the President has to dish out patronage to many people. But Mr. President, let me perhaps ask you by start removing ministers who have already shown themselves to be compromised. Show South Africa that you're really serious about fighting corruption in your party and fire Batabile Dlamini, Faith Mutambi, Musebenzi Zwane, Melusi Gigaba, Des van Rooyen, David Mahlobo, Lynn Brown, and Mr. 7,000 rands per night, Bongani Bongo, out of your cabinet. Mr. President, if you want to undo the damage of state capture, then we must acknowledge those who've led us there in the first place. It will be easy to write off the crisis of evil work to one man in cahoots with foreign benefactors, but the truth is much more difficult. State capture would not have happened had it not been for the support of the policy of the ANC of cadre deployment of sending people to state-owned enterprises. It is these deployed cadres who hollowed out our state-owned enterprises to enrich a few individuals closer to them. It was cadre deployment to the commanding heights of the criminal justice system, the NPA, the Hawks, the SARS, who all looked the other way when state capture was taken. It was this corrupt system was not the work of one man, nor is it that the removal of one man will now suddenly destroy it. If you want to destroy it, Mr. President, you have to end the ANC's policy of cadre deployment. That means, in fact, confronting the perpetrators of this corrupt system that still sit in this house, some who still occupy senior offices at Luthuli House, and some who are in fact involved in now what is now come to know the Vrede Dam farm theft. It will also mean removing from offices those cadres deployed who serve the interest of this corrupt system, and I would begin with the current public protector, Busisiwe Mkhwebane, and also the head of the NPA, Sona. Honorable members, it is deeply encouraging to hear that in fact the President cast doubt on the nuclear deal at the recent World Economic Forum. And I was hoping that on Friday night at the State of the Nation address, the President would have closed the matter once and for all. It is critical that in fact we make our position on the future of nuclear deals very clear. Honorable members, we cannot afford this 1.2 trillion rands junket. It is in fact, it will seem very obvious, but it's another tough choice, Mr. President. Too many people have a vested interest in securing a nuclear deal. And so the pressure will be on to forge ahead. Be strong, Tate Ramaphosa. Reject this nuclear deal and put your weight behind the neglected renewable projects so that we can move forward into an era of clean, affordable energy. Mr. President, you are one of the few people who can claim proud co-authorship of our Constitution. All of us in this House pledge our allegiance to it, and we owe our eternal protection to it. On Friday, you reaffirmed the soaring words of the opening pages that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white. Bold leadership requires that you resist the pressures in your own party to undo the rights enshrined in our Constitution, including property rights. The same property rights underpin the entire economy, as you will know from your own successful business career. The dispossession of the 1913 Land Act, the dispossession of land through the 1913 Native Land Act was apartheid's original sin. Its consequences are still felt in our society today, and make no mistake, it must be addressed. We can correct this injustice in a way that respects the rule of law, in which the rights of current and future landowners are protected. We can speed up land reform by rooting out corruption and inefficiency. And we must, fellow South Africans, trust emerging black farmers with real land ownership, not just the permanent tenants of the state. Let those who work the land own the land. Bagaetso, ke ne ke ile go Northern mo go Limpopo, ka bona Re Rakhase. Re Rakhase gompieno o nna mo lehatsheng ke molemi, sala le ko teng, mme puso ya rona gompieno e paletswe ke mo fa lefatshe la gagwe. bothata ba gage ga se constitution bothata ba gage ke gore puso ya gage e paletswe ke go mo fa lefatshe la gage ka nako ene e tshwanetse e mo fe lone. Therefore, we can, fellow South Africans, we need a capable government and a political will to hand over land, not an amendment to the Constitution. We can have a thriving, growing, and a diverse agricultural sector whose wonderful produce fill the shelves all over the world. But we absolutely cannot afford this if farmers do not know what their land will be taken from them without any compensation. Expropriation of land without compensation is incompatible with a growing, flourishing economy. You can have one or the other, but you can't have both. In fact, this is what our neighbors in Zimbabwe started to pursue to such disastrous effect in the past. Mr. President, this is another tough choice you have to make. And as the President may well know from his time in the previous government, nothing threatens our public finances more than badly run state-owned enterprises. The greatest applause during his speech on Friday night was when he promised to end cadre deployment on the boards of SOEs and committed to appointing competent, experienced people. I want to applaud you again for that commitment. While this is great progress, Mr. President, it's not enough to fix our SOEs. Boards don't always shield you from corruption, as we've seen in some of the private sector corruption that has taken place. The governing party has been dogmatically committed to state retaining control over SOEs, no matter what their performance is. Mr. President, isn't it time now that we ought to be willing to part ways with SAE? It should be broken up, and in fact, this has been done all over the world. We must end the Eskom monopoly on the generation of power and boldly embrace independent power producers and renewable energy sources. Bagaetso, last week we lost a dear friend, a fellow opposition leader, a prime minister, an activist, a husband and a father, Ndate Morgan Swangarai. We mourn his passing, and I personally will miss him dearly. He offered wise counsel and support to me, and I regret, with all that happened last week, I was not able to speak to him one last time. Morgan was beaten nearly to death many times for his political activism, and he never once wavered for his commitment to fight. I can recall Morgan's word on the night of the rigged 2002 Zimbabwe elections, when he said, what the people of Zimbabwe now deserve is a celebration, but the forces of darkness may yet try to block your path from victory. As I address you, it is said that the regime still is intent on defying your will. Whatever may happen, I, as your loyal servant, am with you all the way. They may want to arrest me and worst kill me, but they will never destroy the spirit of the people to reclaim their power. Here in South Africa, we deserve our own celebration. But our joy was tempered with the knowledge that the broken system still remains. Our joy is now to fix what is broken, to uplift the spirit of our country. This will require soul-searching from all of us, but especially from those on the ANC's benches. Mr. Zuma did not rise to power and stay in power by himself. He was aided and abetted by many of you on that side. And so the question is, under President Ramaphosa, can the ANC reform itself? Only time will tell. Mr. Ramaphosa, you are not just the president of a particular party. You are our president, and I'm proud to call you that. We will support you when you do what is right and when you make tough choices required to improve our people's lives. But when you make mistakes, as surely you will, we will fulfill our patriotic duty. We will continue to govern to the best of our ability where we are in power and offer South Africans an alternative. Our fight will always be for those who are left out and unemployed. May we enter a new era of mutual, robust detest and show loyalty to the people of this beautiful country. On a point of order. Africa. I thank you very much.
The Honorable, the Minister of Human Settlements. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would like to make a request to you to look through the rules of Parliament and find if it is admissible in this House that a member can stand here and cast aspersions on ministers who serve in this government. My request to you is to look at the rules of Parliament and advise us on this matter. Honorable Maimane. Order, honorable members. Order.
On a point of order, Speaker.
What's the point of order, Honorable Shibambu?
The point of order is that when a member of Parliament is of the view that a certain rule of Parliament has been violated, they rise on a point of order and immediately indicate that there's been a violation of a rule, and then give you an opportunity to rule on it, and not opportunistically take a podium and do what the Minister of Human Settlement is doing, because it's totally out of order to want to abuse that
Honorable
platform for things which otherwise are provided
the point
for
of debate is taken. Honorable Minister, please proceed. My request stands, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I find that it is absolutely dishonorable for Honorable Maimane to take credit for the change of government that was a structural. Order, honorable members. Allow the minister to please make his speech. Honorable Minister, please proceed with your contribution. What structural adjustment within the ANC was driven by the ANC and has nothing to do with the opposition. And he continues for exaggerated effect to talk of a broken state. South Africa is not a broken state. We have our problems, but it is not a broken state. And you no doubt overlook the quagmire that surrounds the city of Cape Town while you talk of a broken state in South Africa. Madam Speaker, let me join everybody in congratulating you, Honorable Comrade President, on being elected the President of our Republic, and reiterate the good wishes and confidence of our party that the Chief Whip has conveyed to you. I would like to join the Chief Whip too in thanking you in acknowledging the contribution of former President Zuma in the struggle and in government. It was the right thing to do, and it helped cement a message that the change of government was not out of malice. He's a leader of our organization and a former president. The State of the Nation address that you delivered on Friday, the 16th February in 2018, removed any doubt that could have existed that your ascension to the presidency was indeed timely. It has already helped the country to regain its focus and imbued our people with much needed renewed energy. In your speech, you took us back to that period, I think it has been referred to, where former President Mbeki stood here and gave his seminal speech on I'm an African. It took overwhelmingly everybody in this room with him, and in the euphoria that followed, there was unanimity that we were one. We're all of us one, we're Africans. Similarly, after your speech, there was a unanimous feeling of joy and approval, and the entire chamber rose as one to applaud the renewed hope that you gave. Hope, Mr. President, is the most fertile state of mind to drive a people forward. You change the collective country's thoughts from concentrating on negativity to a positive mood. Your closing paragraph, as has been mentioned, was singularly touching when you invoked the appropriate message that you borrowed from our own recently departed African jazz giant Hugh Masekela, and you asked us to send you. And in essence, you were asking all of us to follow suit, and each one of us to volunteer to be an activist of this renewed hope.
It was a call to each one of us to lend a hand to fight poverty, to fight AIDS, to fight cancer, to defeat alcohol, drug abuse, and to end abuse of women and children, and lend a hand to fight all forms of discrimination. It was a call to active participant citizenry, where each citizen feels valued, their contribution called upon, so that all of us can be part of this creation of a better life for all. On behalf of the ANC, we accept the call that you have given to each one of us here to serve and to be ready to serve. And we say in return, send us too, because siyavuma. Angisho Jackson, siyavuma. Anginizwa siyavuma. Ngiyabonga. And so too would every decent citizen agree. It is a must. Let each citizen ask themselves what they can do for the country, not what the country can do for them. If through your actions you inspire us to feel included and allowed to dream more, to learn more, to do more, and become more, then you are indeed on the right path. Our potential as a people is endless. Lead us to get to it. Immediately after your speech, Mr. President, and the cheering that ensued in the chamber, the opposition suddenly found a different voice outside of this chamber and complained that the speech was full of promise, blowing in the wind with no plan. Two things need to be made clear in response. First, we do have a plan that was accepted and adopted by all in this House. It is called the National Development Plan. That is our plan. That is the national plan. The President was the deputy head of the commission that developed that plan, and he has been leader of government business, is on top of all the issues that confront us here today. He has a plan. He knew what he was talking about. It was not hot air blowing in the wind. Secondly, the President mapped out the steps that he was going to take with each commitment that he made. Those summits are the first steps of those plans. He has a plan, we have a plan, and you are part of that plan. You will be invited to those summits. Thirdly, and most importantly, you are part of that plan because the President has made a commitment that the first thing he wants to do is, as a priority, is to meet each one of the leaders of the opposition. Mr. President, we've taken note of your instruction that perhaps we should do something about our governance. We do remain convinced about the need to do something about our governance. Perhaps the review of the size and structure of government departments is one of those things that we would be looking at. In view of the resources that are available to us, it would be a necessary cost cutter. Governance, by its very nature, calls on all of us to constantly revisit the plans that we have and the paths that we have chosen to assess their efficacy and respond to the environment we operate in. We will streamline the work of government across the departments at national level and at various spheres as well. Mr. President, you stated the need to perhaps revisit each department and make sure that perhaps you find what we should be doing there. This would be good if you did it under conditions of anonymity, or if you did not indicate that you would be visiting the departments involved. We look forward to hearing from you what you find in those departments. Mr. President, as you emphasized the configuration and the effectiveness of government, you also emphasize the effectiveness and governance of state-owned enterprises, that they should play a meaningful role in a developmental state. We welcome this. As the Constitution enjoins us that we should, amongst other things, improve the quality of life of all citizens, free the potential of each person, itself a necessary condition for the radical socio-economic transformation, we have therefore established in the public sector institutions, organizations, and structures whose main objective are the fulfillment and the other constitutional imperatives that are upon us. There is no doubt that we have to continue to face serious challenges that we have had in the public sector, and in this regard, we will work tirelessly and speedily to make sure that there are tangible effects to this in the triple challenges of inequality, poverty, and unemployment. The issue you raise, Mr. President, the issues indeed that you raise are not only important to the governing party, they are of national importance, provincial importance, and at local government as well. The need to focus on building a capable state is an issue that all political parties should be concerned about and in fact rally around. We can start with having a capable state around the city of Cape Town. We may contest for political power, we are granted, and based on our differing notions on the future of the state, but we should all agree that we need a capable state for the future of our children. In 2011, it became very clear from an effective and efficient and capable state point of view that we dream of, for the purposes of complying with constitutional requirements of public administration and for the purposes of dealing with a myriad of problems pointed out by the Auditor General, the Public Service Commission, and other Chapter 9 institutions to do something about the state of governments. In pursuance of this, we established a commission, and after that, we had the Public Administration Bill in place, which acts as an instrument to guide all of us in having proper administration of government. And in this, we streamlined both the national, provincial, and local government. The PAM Bill is a corrective and proactive regulatory instrument. It is corrective in the sense that it is a response to many structural human weaknesses that continue to bedevil the public service. These weaknesses have been captured by the National Development Commission's diagnostic report, and these have continuously been reported to us. The need for further elaboration on the PAM Bill is with us, and if we focus on that, we will get the basis of a capable state ongoing. We can do better. In essence, the PAM Bill is based on the following pillars of the Constitution. A high standard of professional ethics must be promoted and maintained. 2, efficient economic use of resources must be promoted. Public administration must be development-oriented. Services must be provided impartially, fairly, equitably, and without bias. People's needs must be responded to, and the public must be encouraged. This is the preamble of the PAM Bill. Mr. President, I take the occasion now to go on to say that the issue of corruption that you mentioned is something that is very central to the PAM Bill, very central to our concerns, and we have dealt with it, and we will continue to look into this matter. We now have a Development and Planning and Monitoring and Evaluation Department created in 2014, where the 2 ministries in the presidency were merged. We now have a mandate paper that guides government. We need to strengthen these by conducting more inside monitoring, Mr. President, alongside with you. The National Development Plan is instructive in the steps we take to improve the delivery performance of the state, and it is notable that the example that is used in this is that of water. Not water now, but generally at the point at which the National Development Plan was put in place. And this is what it says, I quote, "The public needs a clearer sense of who is accountable for what. There is a need to have systems to hold all leaders in society accountable for their conduct. Weak, poorly performing systems make it hard to attribute responsibility, with the frequent result that no one is accountable in the end. The plan cites the example of what happens when water in a town is found to be undrinkable, or the situation that we find ourselves in Cape Town. The media blames the Minister of Water Affairs, the community blames the mayor blames the head of the water utility. This comes from the NDP, if you haven't read it. The mayor blames the head of the water utility, The head of the water utility blames the technical engineer. The engineer says the maintenance budget has been cut for the past 3 years and now the water is undrinkable. The head of the finance in the municipalities that the budget was cut because personnel costs have crowded out maintenance expenditure, and so it goes on and so it goes on. So South Africa's intergovernmental system, complex as it is, needs to be managed, and it needs to be managed now. Mr. President, we have a value add in our approach to public servants, and this value add is measured in a motto that we adopted, all of us, that public servants are bound by this. And this motto is Batubeli. Together with their representatives, a service charter was signed in 2013, which binds all public servants. And the preamble to the service charter states as follows for your information. All employees of the state commit to upholding the values and principles of public administration enshrined in Section 195 of the Constitution and other laws and policies and frameworks. It upholds the constitutional responsibility of the state clearly articulated in the Bill of Rights to deliver services to its citizens. It notes the continued effort of the state and the public servants in building a developmental state. It acknowledges the service delivery challenges in the public service and is equally concerned about the increasing manifestation of corruption in the public sector. And all public servants are required to commit themselves to this charter and sign a contract with the state that they will abide by that. Mr. President, at this point, I wanted to bring to your attention a request that has come to me to send to you, Mr. President. The request is, in the heyday of our changeover of government, the media followed us everywhere and suffered overwhelming fatigue. We have learned with regret that Peter Ndoro has lost his job. Mr. President, we ask you to stand up and assure the country that he has not killed you. You are alive, that you have forgiven Peter Ndoro. And because we think he is an outstanding representative of this country. In conclusion, I hope you will give me my time.
Order, honorable members. Order. People hadn't gotten the news about Peter Ndoro, so there's a bit of confusion.
I am so sorry. I was conveying to the President our concern about the fact that we in the ruling party have kept the media on their toes and maybe have done them harm. And the President needs to indicate he's still alive. He is not been killed. He has not been killed. Shall I continue?
Please proceed, Honorable Minister. Order, honorable members. Allow Honorable Minister to finish.
What?
Please, Honorable Minister, just finish your speech.
Right. You're the biggest one. This is a message to the President. Mr. President, what destination should those steering the Republic keep their eyes fixed upon? By what cause should they guide us there? The answer to what most reasonable, decent, and blessed people always desire, namely a better life for all and honor. Those who wish this are our best citizens, none of whom are here. Those who make it happen are our best leaders over there and are considered to be our saviors. These people who govern us. Speaker, I do request your protection as I close.
Honorable Minister, you are protected. Please finish.
Mr. President.
Order, honorable members. Honorable members, order. Honorable members, you are going to delay Honorable Malema.
Thank you, Speaker. Can the minister sit down? Clearly she's done.
No, she must just finish her speech.
But she doesn't know what she wants to say now.
Please take a seat, Honorable.
Our people are waiting for the president to speak now at home.
Honorable Dozie, sit down. Let the minister finish off her speech.
Those people who govern us should not ever be carried away by their own political power, that they turn away from the promise to our people. But neither should they embrace a peace that is dishonorable and a state that is dishonorable. The founding principles of our republic, the essence of a better life with honor, the values that our leaders should defend and guard with their very lives if necessary, are those respecting the religion of our people, the Constitution, discovering the will of the people, and making sure, please, Honorable Speaker, protect me from these people. We allowed
Order, honorable members.
We allowed you to grandstand.
When you are talking incessantly, she can't even hear herself think. Please give the minister a chance.
Speaker. Order, Speaker.
What's the point of order, Honorable Shengwe?
Can you allow our president? Our people are waiting to hear from the president.
She's
not ready. She's just not ready. She's telling us about Pitandoro,
Yes,
Pitandoro.
Please take
Want
your
to
seat.
hear a
Take your
revolutionary
seat,
speech?
Honorable Deputy SG of the EFF. Please allow the minister to finish.
This which I am quoting, which is a fundamental of democracy, will apply to your president in 20 years' time or 24 years' time, whatever the time it takes. What I wanted to say, Mr. President, to you in particular, is that the authority of state is vested in this parliament, obeying the law, valuing the traditions of democracy, upholding the courts and their verdicts, and practicing integrity, defending all of us and defending the country, standing up for our country. This is what we expect of you always. This is what we got from you. This is the commitment that you gave to this House, and we applaud you, and we're very grateful for the fact that you stood here to give us renewed hope. Thank you very much, President.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Malema.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, the chairperson of the NCOP, the officials of the government in waiting, the EFF, my president, Mr. President, Pumu Presidente, Bashangolote, l'Africa Chipembe, Nda. We thank the judiciary, we thank the South African media, we thank the NGOs and all opposition parties and the people of South Africa for defeating the monster that was created by the ruling party. We say the unity displayed during difficult times we have gone through in the past 9 years once more demonstrated that when people are united, not even the powerful can defeat them. We once more say to the people of South Africa, you must continue to be vigilant because the ANC is still in power. Anything is possible. We say to the people of Zimbabwe, the people the Tsvangarai family, the friends, and his colleagues in the MDC, please receive our revolutionary condolences. We may not have agreed with the politics of Morgan Tsvangarai, but we fully admit that indeed he won the elections and the regime did not allow him to become the leader of the people of Zimbabwe. We want to say to Morgan Tsvangarai, that will never happen in South Africa. Here we will not allow nonsensical things like those that happened to you in Zimbabwe to happen. We say to the people of South Africa, we must learn from the mistakes of Zimbabwe and in honor of Morgan Tsvangarai, not allow those who are in power to want to stay in power even when the will of the people indicate otherwise. President, I want to take this opportunity to congratulate you because when they elected you in this illegitimate parliament, I was not here. But the majority of this parliament have agreed that they must proceed business as usual. I want to state very clear on behalf of the EFF that we are willing to give you a chance as a President of the Republic of South Africa, as head of state and government. We only give you a chance because you have not been personally found guilty of being a constitutional delinquent. Because we do not entertain delinquents. We deal with delinquents decisively, like we did before. It is very easy for a country to degenerate if you allow individuals to become constitutional delinquents. President, we want to say to you that you are not a king. You are a leader of the people. And therefore, you must never expect a treatment of a king. You must be a leader. You must welcome those who criticize you and always defend the right of those who disagree with you to disagree with you. You must not abuse your power because you think you are powerful like that. Comrade President, we listened to you when you were speaking because it was the right thing to do. We give you a chance to explain your plans. But the reality is that, President, you are not having any plan. That's why you came here and told us of job summits, because you are still going to look for plans out of the job summits. That's why you came here and told us about the issues of social sector summits, because there's no plan. You came here and told us about investment conference, because there's no plan. You told us about youth summit, because you have got no clear plan on how you're going to resolve a thorny issue of youth unemployment. President, you have no plan in dealing with collection of tax because SARS has collapsed. That's why you have called for the Commission of Inquiry into Tax Affairs. President, we are saying to you, you're doing all of this because you know that you will be a president for 12 months. You are effectively saying to South Africa, there's nothing I can do in the next 12 months because I'll be looking for plans from commissions. And after 12 months, I will be gone. Because indeed you will be gone after 12 months. President, you mentioned expropriation of land without compensation. And we all agreed. Actually, that was the highest applaud you got. I heard the leader of the opposition saying something else. Before I come to you, I want to warn him, the leader of the opposition, that your stay in the metros is going to depend on your attitude on the expropriation of land without compensation. And I want to warn you about that. Because that's a fundamental issue which is going to make us fight with you. Because anyone opposed to expropriation of land without compensation is the enemy of our people, and such a person will be dealt with. Mr. President, the expropriation of land without compensation mentioned by you did not capture the headlines because they know you are bluffing. They know you are not serious about it. Anybody who is worried about investment in South Africa would have been worried when you mentioned expropriation of land without compensation. But you told them, I'm just passing time. Don't worry, I'm silencing my opponents in the ANC. This cannot be an issue to bluff about. This cannot be an issue to pass time with. It's an emotive issue, and you only mention it if you mean it. It's not a matter that you can go around joking about it. There are no conditions attached to expropriation of land without compensation, because when they took our land, they never attached any condition. They just killed our people. I don't understand, Mr. President, why would you have Faith Mutambi as a minister and not have Toko Didiza as a minister? What justification is that? Any normal person in power makes Faith Mutambi a minister and leave out a person like Toko Didiza. You removed the ESCOM people because of allegations. You didn't waste time. You waste time to remove your own colleagues here. The reason why you jumped that line of saying you are going to arrest people is because when you spoke about corruption and arresting corrupt people, we kept on saying ACE. And you wanted to save ACE's face by jumping that line. Why? Because you are continuing to protect your own. Don't protect those who are implicated in corruption. All of them who are going to be frequenting state capture inquiry, they must be released so that they can have time to prepare for state capture inquiry. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Buthelezi.
Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Honorable.
Honorable
Chief
Speaker.
Whip of the IFP.
Yeah, may I crave your indulgence? I was working on the time that Honorable Malema would take, and he only took 9 of his 14 minutes. Honorable Buthelezi is on the way.
Yes, I recognize that. Thanks.
Honorable Speaker, Your Excellency, our President, Honorable Ministers and Honorable Deputy Ministers, Honorable Members, I apologize, Madam Speaker. Dr. Njosi says that I was captivated. Maybe I was, when his leader was speaking. This morning, I wish to add my voice to the many who congratulate our new president on taking office, believing that our nation has moved into a new era in which may begin to heal the serious wounds inflicted over the past 8 years. The president has indeed given us hope for change and renewal. He has spelled out exactly what he's going to do in a way that everyone can understand. For that, we thank him. For your Sona speech, Your Excellency, as a statement of intent, I give you 10 out of 10. I welcome President Ramaphosa's election, and I support the leadership at this crucial juncture, for South Africa needs certainty. Only certainty can bring stability and hope. Our president has the capacity to create certainty, and that is what we ask him to do. For too long, our country's leadership has vacillated on economic policy, hesitated to act on corruption, and been reluctant to take the necessary steps to rescue South Africa. For too long, we have endured a president who pays lip service to fundamental issues, but whose words are meaningless. We pray that that is the past. But whether we like it or not, the National Development Plan will always be President Zuma's legacy. One of the first and greatest tests for our president will be the issue of land. There is a wound among our people that has never been healed. We cannot deal with inequality until we resolve the issue of land, for land is the means to create security, development, and wealth. We knew this during the apartheid era when the KwaZulu government sought to protect the few bits and pieces which were left to the kingdom after colonial conquest and racial dispossession. We did this by passing the Ngonyama Trust Act through the KwaZulu Legislative Assembly so that land in traditional areas could continue to be administered according to indigenous and customary law. After 1994, when the, I'm sorry, Madam Speaker, I apologize. This was not a secret deal, as some people alleged. There was no need for any so-called conscious deal to draw the IFP into the election, as they say, for President de Klerk and President Mandela and I had already signed the solemn agreement that enabled the IFP to go into the elections. The promise had already been made that international mediation would follow elections to resolve the outstanding issues of negotiations. Ultimately, that promise too, Your Excellency, was broken. But it has already been made. When Ngonyama Trust was passed, it was already made. After 1994, when the land remained in trust, instead of automatically transferring the land to the state, the ruling party, the ANC, demanded that the act be revisited. So it was brought into this chamber. It was debated, it was argued about, and torn to pieces. In 1997, it was finally amended by this parliament to the full satisfaction of the ruling party. Indeed, the Honorable Dr. Zweli Mkhize declared as our premier, and I quote him verbatim, he said, the amended act makes it possible for this province to move ahead with the program of development, as we have agreed on the proposition that all land belongs to the king. It should not appear to be only said by word of mouth. Your Excellency, what has changed? What does this ruling party see now that it didn't see before? Why has the Ngonyama Trust Act suddenly become the enemy number one? Why is the ANC determined to take the land away from our king, away from the custodianship of Amakosi, and away from traditional communities? The king doesn't even own it, he's merely a trustee. This parliament created the trust board during the amendment in 1997, and they created the trust board, and the chairperson of the trust board is none other than the judge of the High Court, Mr. Justice Jerome Ngwenya. And the Constitution recognizes the institution of traditional leadership. But what does it mean? If the role and powers and functions of traditional leaders are continually being stripped away, 18 years ago, a cabinet set up by the President of the Republic, Mr. Mbeki, led by the then Deputy President, the Honorable Mr. Jacob Zuma, was promised traditional leaders that Chapter 7 and Chapter 12 of the Constitution would be amended if the creation of municipalities diminished the role, powers, and functions of traditional leadership. That promise, Your Excellency, was never fulfilled. Instead, through successive pieces of legislation and endless empty words, traditional leaders have been reduced to mere ceremonial figures. The only time they seem to matter is when an election looms. Is this how a black leadership treats its own people? Does the ruling party sincerely believe that bureaucrats in plush offices can administer traditional land better than those who have been the custodians of our people's lives, dignity, and well-being since the time immemorial? Surely the policy of land expropriation without compensation, which necessitates the amendment of our Constitution, should not be used against the poorest of the poor. When the ANC first spoke about expropriation without compensation, Amakosi never expected that the first land to be taken would be the very land that we placed in the hands of the people. Corruption is not just about stealing money, Your Excellency. It's about abusing power. Now, let us hear with certainty that there will be no more abuse of power. That will be the beginning of a new administration. One is head. There is a zero tolerance, there's no zero tolerance for corruption. I've often said, Your Excellency, that corruption is not part of the cause of governance. It is possible to run a clean administration, as I did when I administered the KwaZulu government for 19 years. Having taken up the leadership at the behest of my leaders, Inkosi Albert Lutuli and Mr. Oliver Tambo. Over the course of 19 years, never once was a single allegation of corruption ever leveled at my administration. The fact that not a single MP can travel between Cape Town and Durban on our national airlines, Your Excellency, should tell us that things have gone too far. The multi-million rand bailouts that were standard practice even when I was in the cabinet cannot be allowed to continue. The rot has to stop, and it has to stop right now. Like many South Africans, I've hoped that things are indeed about to change with the accession to power. The door that was firmly closed during Mrs. Zuma's presidency may well be open again. Indeed, the long-ignored work of reconciliation might even creep. The issue of land is an emotional issue. It took a force larger than that which the British used to conquer India, to conquer the Zulu people. The Anglo-Zulu War of 1979 was a full-scale war meant to take away our kingdom from my great-grandfather, King Cetshwayo Kampande. The king was a prisoner here in the castle in Cape Town. The king's regiments were under the command of my paternal great-grandfather, Nyamana Buthelezi, the king's prime minister. My grandfather, Mkandumba Buthelezi, participated at the Sandwana routing of the British force on the 22nd of January 1879. King Cetshwayo was imprisoned here. He was exiled. He was a fugitive. He died. He is buried in the forest in Kandla. Can we imagine if my uncle and my uncle, Dr. Pixigai Sakasema, the founder of the longest existing political movement in Africa, if he were to rise from his grave, would he approve of this dispossession of blacks by blacks? If Inkosi Albert Lutuli, a traditional leader, and my mentor, were to rise from his grave, would he approve? This, Your Excellency, what is on playing with fire? We do not need to create this kind of provocation against ourselves. We have too many bigger issues. So I hope that we are all buoyed by your accession, because there is hope, as you said, for renewal. And the President is right to remind us that it is hope and hope alone that has sustained us in the long, dark tunnel. But this hope will need to be tested and proven, of course. Finally, I've always said, for as long as the President does what is good for South Africa, the IFE will support the President. I thank you, sir.
The Honorable Machala Kis.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As I said before, it's Greek to most people, so I will forgive you. Madam Speaker, fellow South Africans, every year with the release of crime statistics, the Western Cape emerges as the most violent and dangerous province in the country. Simultaneously, it has the lowest unemployment rate of all provinces. This is a strange paradox. Lower unemployment should lead to lower crime stats. Yet gangsterism and drug abuse cast a dark shadow over the economic strides that the province is making. The provincial government knows this, and it wants to fix the problem. But our current system grants provinces almost no rights in terms of policing. Similarly, earlier this year in Johannesburg, Metro train driver Johan Bekus was grievously assaulted when a broken signal delayed his train. Last year, another driver was killed at Network Station, and earlier this year, the United National Transport Union refused to let its members work on the central line that serves the Cape Flats until their safety and that of the commuters can be assured after a guard was killed. This whilst Prasa is falling apart. Our metros are not allowed to touch these rail systems because they are in the hands of the national government. In fact, provinces have few powers in terms of policing and rail transport, and they are also subject to uniform national policies on most social matters, such as education, health, and housing. Ironically, those are the matters that should be the most regionally focused of them all. These are issues that require politicians to be constantly on the ground, aware of all the smallest details in the smallest communities that affect the lives of our people. Provincial ministers are ideally placed for this, and therefore they deserve to have more autonomy on matters of policy. It is no secret that the DA is a federal party with a federalist policy. I offer no excuse for this, on the contrary. But this also does not mean that provinces should function separate from the national context either. Ours is a policy of bringing accountability and government as close as possible to the people and making it work. It's a policy that the ANC fears because they know that if a DA provincial government was given the chance to run policing in this province, the murder rates in places such as Khayelitsha would be much, much lower. They also know that were our provinces and metros allowed to run the metro rail system, more job seekers will find opportunities thanks to our policy. More scholars who can't afford quality schools will be able to attend schools if a provincial alternative to the quintile system can be implemented. And state healthcare would be even better in provinces that are well run, leaving the national government to focus on problematic areas. It was, to be frank, a great disappointment to see how little attention the President paid to provinces in the State of the Nation address. It is because the provinces under this government play no real role in any matter of importance. Greater decentralization can make provinces the laboratories of democracy, with encouraged sharing of different policies between them. We need now, more than ever, innovative ideas. Greater decentralization will also bring governance closer to the people, encourage diversity, lead to more stability, and increase accountability where there is no longer an overlap in duties between the different spheres of government. Provinces that perform should not be feared, Madam Speaker. They should be supported, encouraged, and given more freedom. It does not take away from our national unity to grant it. At the next election, South Africans have a clear choice between two parties who stand squarely opposite each other on this matter. An ANC national government too afraid to hand over some of its powers, thereby reducing provincial governments where they function badly to little more than gravy trains on the one hand, or innovative provincial parliaments that move closer than ever to our people under this DA policy. I thank you.
The Honorable Kyanki.
Achtbare Speaker, achtbare President, namens die ANC wil ek iets verduidelik voor ek begin, dat Pieter Ndoro is op verlof, is nie gefire nie, so ons los dit daar. In a seminal State of the Nation address on Friday, President Cyril Ramaphosa said the country on a course for a year of renewal and of hope. In fact, for the people of the Western Cape, you gave us more reasons to believe in your leadership. In launching the centenary celebrations of our icon, Siapara Nkwe, thousands and thousands came to listen to you to inspire them. From the St. George's Cathedral, you walked down the streets of Cape Town to the Grand Parade with them. That crowd reminded us that the work of building a non-racial society is fully on track. They believed in you when you assured them at the parade that there will be a closure on the matter relating to the former President of the Republic. Indeed, there is now closure on the matter. They believed in you before when you promised them that Eskom problems will be attended to. There are teething problems in Eskom, but there's a new life in Eskom. Mr. President, your message of change, renewal, and hope from your maiden Sona resonates well with the wishes of the South African citizens. Support for the policy directives emanating from the Sona transcends beyond color line political affiliation. As a citizen of the Western Cape, I firmly believe that ordinary citizens of this province, as well as organized formations, will be all hands on deck on the directives of Sona. I want to immediately bring us back to reality. The challenge and opposition to the implementation of the Sona policy directives, Mr. President, is likely to come from the elected government of the Western Cape. As a citizen of this province, I have experienced this government, and I describe it in the following ways. It's a government that abdicates its responsibility, a government that lacks political will. It's a government that positions itself outside of the intergovernmental framework systems. It is a government that conducts itself as opposition whilst it is elected to govern. It blames national government on all of its failures. It claims credit where there are successes. It is a determined anti-transformation agenda government. The fight with the Mayor Delil in the main is about blocking transformation in special development and ensuring that Cape Town citizens receive one type of service regardless of where they are, their race, religion. It has nothing to do with what they are saying in the media. Let me now share a few case studies to demonstrate why the people of the Western Cape pin their hope on you and the government you lead. They have looked beyond the government that they voted for. Let me start with the ongoing drought in the Western Cape. South Africa ranks 128th out of 122 countries in the Yale University's Environmental Performance Index. South Africa also ranks 148 out of 180 countries in terms of water availability per capita, according to the 2012 Water Development Report. As you indicated, South Africa is a water-scarce country. Its management and use becomes critical. Whilst water is increasingly becoming a scarce resource, the demand for water is also increasing, leaving us with a big leadership and governance challenge, and this is where the government of the Western Cape is failing. On May 23rd, 2016, I challenged the Western Cape government at the legislature to tell us about their plans on the following issues 2 years ago. What plans did they have for effective administration of water resources? What they were doing to reduce water demand? And what were their plans for water reuse and desalination? They did none of these. Instead, what we have today is the leader of the opposition who on one day becomes a mayor and a premier at the same time. That he believes that he can run the city, can run the province from his own laptop. He is continuing to fudge day zero. When he's in Cape Town, we know that day zero will be shifted forward and backwards. And what they are also doing is to continue to pay their pals, Tony Leon, tender money to tell the citizens of Cape Town drought is coming when they have not done anything. On this issue of drought, you do not wake up the next day and there is drought. It forewarns you. It is unlike fire. It is unlike all of the other 32 hazards that you have researched. It says that you are given plenty time to put mitigating factors and actions into place. The DA government failed to do that. As you said in the Sona, you are going to be putting an intervention. Would like them to answer these questions. On the second issue raised on the issue of the youth support program, the issue of youth unemployment. The previous speaker here was speaking correctly. The Western Cape performs relatively well compared to other provinces in terms of economic growth. But that performance excludes the vulnerable people of the Western Cape. In the unemployment figure of the Western Cape, the bulk of that is youth unemployment. Has been like that for the past 7 years. They're doing nothing about it. In fact, they block initiatives that...
Honourable Member, please take your seat. Honourable Member, you're on your feet.
Will he take a question on youth unemployment?
Honorable member, will you take a question?
I will take it once I'm done with my speech.
He's not willing, sir. Please continue.
The Western Cape government has failed to implement youth development program, be it policy or actual programs. The province did not cooperate on employing young people on the war on water leaks initiated by Water and Sanitation. And yet they come here and speak about youth unemployment. On the issue of education, the honorable leader of the opposition says this must be fixed. I want to take him back to this province, and I'm just going to give him one example. The matric results of 2017 said to us, in this province, Eitze High School, a colored community, had only 20% pass rate. Out of 15 students, only 3 passed. And the reasons for that are the conditions in the school, vandalism, issues of crime, gangsterism. I would like him to come back and attend to those issues before he can speak about national education issues.
Chairperson.
In fact,
Honorable Janchi, please take your seat. Honorable member.
Yes, would the member at the podium take a question on what he's just said?
Honorable Janchi, are you willing to entertain a question?
We've got lots of info for you.
Extenders bias here, bring it out.
Oh, I must ask.
Bring it.
Thank you. Please take your seat. Honorable member, please address the member through the chair.
I will address the member through the chair.
Yes, sir.
The question is this.
Order, members. Order. Sir, please proceed.
The question is this. Would the member tell this House, in terms of the basket of measurements of all the provinces in the country, why it is that the Western Cape scored #1 in terms of the outcomes, the pass rates, and the number of dropouts in the school system? Why did the Western Cape score
Thank you,
#1?
sir. You've made your question. Please proceed, Honorable Janchi.
I have an answer to that, but let me proceed. Because the quick answer to that is that the Western Cape historically has inherited a stronger baseline on all services across. It is not a DA issue. Even when the ANC was in power, we had that baseline. So let me proceed.
Order. Order. Please proceed.
This government walks about and talk about clean audits that they receive in municipalities and in province. We want to say, Comrade President, this is one of the challenges that we're going to meet. Their clean audit does not translate into service delivery. All of the municipalities that have clean audit have got problems of poverty, have got problems of overcrowding in housing. There are always protests in those municipalities. There's no translation. Ons welfare leier van die oppositie sê, vergeet van skoon audit, gee ons eerder skoon water, vertel vir ons eerder waar is die skoon water. Die DA laat mense in vrees leef met sy maalveldtog wat baston die ons maatskappy geloods het. Praat van gogga maak vir Baba Bang. Die agbare my manne wil die held wees om sy politieke beeld te poets. Hy kan nie eers delete uithaal nie, maar hy wil verkiesings hê.
U tyd is verstreke. Baie dankie. The Honorable Kubisa.
Honorable Chairperson of the NCOP, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa, President Ramaphosa, honorable members of the House, guests in the gallery, the State of the Nation address presented by the State President this last Friday covered a wide spectrum of very critical and pertinent issues affecting our country, and which were to be put right with immediate effect. It was a speech which epitomized hope and optimism. It was a wonderful address, and it certainly got a positive reception within the rank and file and all over South Africa. It was delivered at a time when it was important to restore public confidence and trust to the structure of government, which had waned and eroded over the previous years. It was like the words of the prophet Joel saying, and I quote, "And I will restore or replace for you the years the locust has eaten, the hopping locust, the sweeping locust, the crawling locust, my great army which I sent among you," unquote, Joel 2:28. Honorable Chair of the NSOP, Honorable Speaker, the Honorable President spoke about the need to unite our country. This calls for the need to deal with the pockets and remnants of racism that show their ugly heads in certain corners in our country. We must collectively cultivate the spirit of social cohesion in our republic. We now have the Judicial Commission of Inquiry, and it is indeed our hope that the terms of reference are broad enough and will assist to unravel, review, and cover all the acts of state capture and corruption, and that all those who are found to have been holding our account and ransom through looting the state's resources are arrested. No one who may be found and have been or is involved in the acts of the Commission of State Capture, Corruption and State Capture should get away with impunity. Mr. President, the National Freedom Party welcomes the whole question of free, basic, quality education and higher education. It is our belief that we can strategically raise a lot of money as a state and help fund both quality free education for basic education and higher education. We really cannot overemphasize, Chairperson, the importance of our youth harnessing skills and competencies to help them getting access into the job market and also help them create their own business. This indeed called for the government to create an environment conducive to that, and also reduce all regulatory barriers that minimize chances of our youth to get funding from banks or any organization. In this regard, we welcome the idea of fighting the scourge of unemployment among the youth, and also our women, of course, who must also get the chance to get into business and occupy the ranks in the public sector, the high ranks in public sector, and also in business. Chairperson, the state working with the private sector and other institutions must unlock and advance township and rural economy. That means the need to equip black industrialists is a must. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Holomisa.
Honorable Chairperson, Mr. President, and honorable members, when an opponent has done well, one must applaud and say, well done. Well done on your speech, Mr. President. Your message has restored hope and put South Africa on the right track for the restoration of our dignity. This opportunity, however, was given to you on a silver platter by the steadfast efforts of the loyal opposition, the media, and civil society, while your party's leadership turned a blind eye to brazen looting of state resources and fiddle while South Africa was burning. Who will forget the hundreds of thousands of South Africans who marched in a united display of dissatisfaction over an ill-suited and irresponsible President of the Republic? Madam Speaker, institutionalized corruption has been exacerbated by political heads usurping the powers of accounting officers in all three tiers of government. And Mr. President, there must be consequences for those who have been found guilty of corruption. Ndiyakubona nawe mbakisa apha ukhona amadoda awakhangelayo. Le ntwana kufuneka noyikhangela phaa kwayo mane nkandla ningabe nisidlulisela apha. The state capture inquiry must be beefed up with the inclusion of forensic audit experts and even the hawks. The Justice Department must be directed to make special provision for prosecuting capacity and the establishment of dedicated courts to expedite justice, as was done in 2010 during the World Cup. Once the inquiry identifies an incident of corruption, the hawks must pounce, the judicial system must take the baton whilst the inquiry continues. Mr. President, you mentioned the infrastructure development in your speech and specifically referred to roads. Millions of South Africans are forced to travel long distances to work in the cities and mines. These long-distance travels are marred by accidents, death, and injury, with some using insensible transport. It might be time for us to consider state-of-the-art safe speed trains to decongest roads, decrease accidents, and to save time and lives. Also, Mr. President, we need to attend to the phenomenon of anarchy in our society, the general lack of discipline and disrespect of the law. Your call to action resonates with all South Africans, Mr. President. We all want to see it prosper so that we might thrive as a collective and as individuals. Your call builds on action initiated by opposition parties and civil society of the course of the past year or so. We all said we want to be there to stay the rot of corruption, and we were there on the streets in our thousands. We commend your consultative style and welcome the initiatives you mentioned in your Sona, but you did not go far. There must be a broadening of the collective consultative process. Call it what you will, indaba, convention, or a summit, but we need to convene under one roof to discuss the critical challenges facing South Africa. Contrary to the opinion of some political gurus who said the opposition was exclusively obsessed with getting rid of former President Zuma, we have laid the groundwork for this national dialogue. With the input from some academics, we compiled the following draft problems. 1, the reinstatement of our constitutional order and the rule of law. Reaffirmation of our founding values and vision. Measures to ensure inclusive economic participation to address inequality. Reverse our economic decline. The establishment of a shared consensus on land reform. This should include the rural tenure system, bodies like the Nkanda Trust, Ingonyama Trust, as well as selling of urban land to foreigners. Review the National Development Plan with regard to its implementations and outcomes. Reviving of our national morality and eradication of systemic corruption. The reformation of our electoral system to enhance accountability and responsiveness. Review of the powers of the functions of the President to resolve the over-concentration of power.
Round up, General.
Sekunjalo nasiswa.
Kunjalo good. Siyabonga. Akhbarelet Groenewald.
Dankie, voorsitter. Ek wil vir die agbare president sê dat ek het al verskeie kere van hierdie podium gepraat oor wederwysige respek. Om 'n vooruitstrewende Suid-Afrika te skep, moet ons wederwysige respek hê vir mekaar. Respek vir mekaar as individue, respek vir mekaar se verskille, respek vir mekaar se verskillende kulture, verskillende geskiedenis en ons verskillende tale. The preamble of the Constitution put it very clearly. We, the people of South Africa, believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. Ek wil vir die agbare president duidelik sê, die Vryheidsfront Plus wil hande vat en bou aan 'n beter toekoms nie 'n beter verlede nie. And I'm going to say in isiZulu. Hage, sibambizane, izandla ziyagezana. Having said that, I want to say I am an Afrikaner and a son of the soil of Africa. Afrikaners and white people want to contribute to a better future for all in South Africa. We can help to build a better South Africa, but then we need to have mutual respect for each other. Tans is daar 'n aanslag op Afrikaans in ons skole, in ons universiteite. Ten spyte daarvan dat die grondwet sê dat ons geregtig is op moedertaalonderwys. Daar kan egter nie sprake wees van respek as die LER vir onderwys in Gauteng Afrikaans met 'n rassekwas wil bykom asof dit wit bevoorregting is. Dit, agbare president, terwyl 60% van Afrikaans sprekendes breinmense is en 'n skool reeds veelrassig is. Dit skep nie respek nie. Dit laat vrae ontstaan. You've put quite a lot of emphasis on job creation, specifically for the youth. And you said, and I quote, ons bou 'n land waar 'n persoon se vooruitsigte deur eie inisiatief en harde werk bepaal word en nie volgens die kleur van hulle vel, geboorteplek, geslag, taal of inkomste van hulle ouers nie. Ek stem saam daarmee. But because of affirmative action and broad-based black economic empowerment, white young people are excluded from jobs, bursaries, and opportunities based on the color of their skin. Is it fair that a young man or a girl who has been born in 1994 in the new dispensation been subject to affirmative action and black economic empowerment? I think it is time for a sunset clause on this matter, and we will have to talk. Black students obtaining a university degree are more than double the number of white students at the moment. If we want to promote mutual respect for each other, we have to acknowledge merit as criteria to appoint people in positions and to build the economy. Oor grondhervorming, agbare president, wil ek vir u sê, die blote aanvaarding van die beginsel van grondonteening sonder vergoeding is negatief vir die ekonomie. Dit is negatief vir voedselsekerheid. Die vraag is, wat wil u bereik met onteiening? As dit bloot is om vir mense grond te gee, dan moet u dit sê. Wat ek wil vandag vir u sê, om net grond vir iemand te gee, maak nie so 'n persoon ryk nie. U eie minister van Grondsake en Landelike Ontwikkeling erken, 90% van die bestaande projekte het misluk. 93% van mense wil nie die grond hê nie, hulle wil die geld hê. En ek wil vandag vir u sê, die Vryheidsfront plus verwerp grondonteening sonder vergoeding, want dit raak alle eiendomme, of jy op 'n plaas is, of jy in 'n dorp of in 'n stad bly, en dit sal die ekonomie nadelig beïnvloed en potensiële beleggers afskrik van Suid-Afrika. Ek dankie.
Dankie. The Honorable, the Councillor Tau.
Honorable Chairperson of the NCOP, Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, Your Excellency President Ramaphosa, Honorable members. Your Excellency, let me join the millions of our people in congratulating you on being elected and wish you well in the highest office of the Republic. Your election, Mr. President, has indeed created euphoria, thereby imposing a sense of urgency on all of us to accelerate the agenda for fundamental socio-economic transformation. The 2018 Sona was momentous in emphasizing change, hope, and renewal. We believe this message must be felt by people at local level. The extent to which things are changing must resonate with lived experiences of people in various localities, villages, and towns of our country. For this to materialize, local government must play its critical role in supporting and being part of the broader change, rebuilding, and hope initiatives of government. As Salga, we welcome the state president's emphasis on the Back to Basics program that entails, among others, the principles of Batupeli. This Back to Basics approach is our cornerstone in its emphasis on local government's developmental role. As we know, a developmental local government implies a local government committed to work with citizens to find sustainable ways to meet their social, economic, and material needs. Of course, a capable and developmental local government is one equipped with adequate financial and institutional capacity. This will include, among others, the ability to leverage national subsidies for capital raising, access to donor and climate funding, and a fundamental review of the revenue-generating options available to local government. More than ever, we need capable, functional, and viable municipalities that are able to deliver on both the objective and subjective expectations of their constituencies. This will happen when the municipalities are better organized, better capacitated, and better resourced. We have raised on numerous occasions that the powers and functions amongst the three spheres must be resolved as a matter of urgency to avoid the various incidents of unfunded mandates. That once these powers and functions have been resolved, a thoroughgoing and holistic funding allocation to local government must be attended to. More specifically, we have raised an ongoing concern that the fact that local government receives an average of 9% from the national fiscus. We do also want to raise the worrisome issue of the ever-increasing debt owed to municipalities by government, business, and households. At the last check, this was sitting at 143 billion rands. We do hope that this august House will deal with some of the proposals and give directives, even if through legislation, for all parties to work towards the resolution of this matter. One available and important instrument to reinstill hope and renewal is through social compacts, which are implicit agreements entered into by diverse stakeholders to build consensus for a shared future. These compacts are most relevant given our obligation as Salga to effectively manage the integration of space, economies, and people. We pledge as the sector to utilize consultation processes in generating IDPs as platforms to cement meaningful partnerships with business, labor, civil society, and our communities. Madam Speaker and Chairperson, local government is at the coalface of delivering to our communities some of the most crucial services, including water, sanitation, and electricity. Recent developments, including the impact of climate change, which has resulted in severe drought in all our coastal provinces, plus the intensity of rain and changes in rainfall patterns, have placed these services under enormous strain. These, coupled with supply-side challenges from national utilities, has impacted not only on the reliability of service provision, but also on the revenue and thus financial viability of our municipalities. We remain concerned as a sector by the deepening drought crisis in our country. We add our voice to the President's concerns in acknowledging the good efforts made by both consumers and donors in response to the water crisis in various parts of the country. If we do not plan accordingly to effect long-term solutions, we run the risk of worsening our status as a water-scarce country. As a sector, we have also observed significant technical and commercial water losses equating to 38% and an estimated 7.2 billion rands per annum. The average water consumption in South Africa is 235 litres per capita per day compared to a world average of 185. On the supply side, various provinces and municipalities are investigating and implementing desalination of seawater and the treatment of acid mine water. Our national awareness campaign is focused on urging our people to use water sparingly, grey water usage, plus localization of storage capacities. Honorable members, we also believe that there are opportunities for off-balance sheet financing solutions to address non-revenue water. At our recent National Executive Committee as Salga, we have identified the need to pool our resources and capabilities and jointly with government achieve the requisite economies of scale and agglomeration. Chairperson, the global energy sector is currently experiencing a major transition and disruption. There is a shift away from centralized generation and distribution monopolies to more distributed, user-engaged, digitally integrated energy systems. This shift has the potential to radically alter the way in which the energy sector will function in the future. The transition in the energy sector is driven by a range of factors such as increasing demands on networks ranging from a reliability and accessibility perspective to technological advances and an increased emphasis on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. These global drivers have resulted in several megatrends in the industry which are acting as catalysts for change. These megatrends can be summarized as follows. The electricity distribution industry is experiencing the delinking of economic growth and electricity demand. Sales of electricity in municipalities have shown a sustained downward trend over the last years and have in some instances dropped significantly. The growth in renewable energy technologies is reshaping energy systems across the globe. In South Africa, which relies on coal-fired power plants for 90% of electricity generation, this trend suggests a critical shift in dynamics, generating numerous risks and opportunities at the local levels in the value chain. Having said so, there is an inherent risk flowing from what in general must be considered a positive development from a climate change mitigation point of view. The growing number of businesses that are operating off-grid indicates an increase in consumption of clean energy, which is ideal if climate change mitigation mechanisms are to be adhered to. However, the lesser the number of those connected to the grid, the lower the revenue for our municipalities, and thus impacting on the financial viability of our municipalities. Chairperson, we welcome the State President's bold announcements to implement effective land reform measures to enhance our efforts to transformation and indeed grow our economy. We are indeed pleased that such efforts will consider a basket of solutions rather than placing more emphasis on one element. As part of the global land tools network, South Africa needs to diversify the tools available to transform land ownership and land use. This should include access to land and tenure of security that involves family and group rights, enumeration of tenure security, and the continuum of land title in farmland and informal settlements. Thank you very much.
Motlotlehi van Dam.
Honorable Chairperson, I would like to join South Africa in congratulating President Cyril Ramaphosa on his election as the 5th President of the Republic of South Africa. With him, he carries the aspirations of 56 million South Africans who hope that a new dawn has indeed broken. In a State of the Nation address last week, President Ramaphosa went some way in reinstalling this hope in the hearts of the people of our beautiful country. Hope that was shattered by Jacob Zuma, aided and abetted by the ANC. In his speech, I was particularly impressed by President Ramaphosa's commitment to not tolerate the plunder of public resources. Uthe, amasela aba imali kahulumende mawabanjwe. He committed to turn the tide of corruption in our public institutions and invited all South Africans to lend a hand. As the official opposition, our leader, Mmusi Maimane, has already assured President Ramaphosa that he can count on the DA's support as long as he acts in the best interest of the people of South Africa. What is in the best interest of the people of South Africa, Honourable Chairperson, is for politicians, not just government officials, to be held accountable when caught stealing or facilitating the stealing of the people's money. The DA fully agrees, President Ramaphosa, that amasela aba imali kahulumende mawabanjwe. In addition, mababoshwe, and then baye tronk too. The DA has and will continue to lend a hand in making this happen. Many of those amasela are high-ranking members of the ANC who sit comfortably in the benches of this House today. We would like to see President Ramaphosa as the leader of the ANC.
No point of order, Chief.
You are on your feet, sir.
All right, I'm rising on Joint Rule 4, 14P. The member is using an offensive language by saying that AMA members of ANC amasela. It means that they are thieves. It is not parliamentary. Thank you, sir.
House Chairperson.
Honourable Steenhuisen.
House Chairperson, we've had many rulings before in the past that when you refer to members of a political party, it's acceptable. It's when you say an individual member like Minister X or Minister Y, but to refer generally can never be outside of the rules of the House.
House Chair.
Order, members.
Chair.
Order, members. May I make a ruling?
Okay, no problem.
Honourable members, don't spoil a good debate. Please keep to the confines of good rules of debates and let us proceed.
I am merely quoting the president who said in his speech they took namasela aba imali kahulumende, and some of them are in the ANC. It's a fact. We would like to see President Ramaphosa as the leader of the ANC assuring the public and this House that
Can I have less talk, please, and give the speaker on the podium the chance?
We would like President Ramaphosa to assure us that there will be no political interference in the criminal investigations and prosecution of these individuals, amasela. The law must be allowed to take its course without special treatment for politicians. We would also like to hear President Ramaphosa publicly condemn these individuals by name, something he has not done thus far. Speaking in meanders about the corrupt within your own party is simply not good enough. South Africa deserves straight talk and straight action from you about corruption. First in line must be Jacob Zuma. We would like to see the Ramaphosa presidency walking the talk by holding Mr. Zuma accountable for the millions he wasted in trying to avoid prosecution. South Africa also deserves to know how much of its money Mr. Zuma spent over the last decade doing so. He must pay every single cent back for his odoriferous sagas. Second in line to be brought to book is the ANC's current Secretary General and Premier of the Free State, Ace Magashule, who I was hoping to see in the front benches but is not here today, who is implicated in the Estina project, which saw 220 million meant for poor farmers transferred by Mosebenzi Zwane, who is also not here, to the Guptas. The
On a
contracts...
point of order.
Honorable Van Dam, please take your seat.
A member of parliament must be referred to as an honorable member, not on a first name basis.
Thank you, sir. That, Honorable Van Dam, I sustain that point of order. Please refer to the members of the House as honorable members.
People in this country are suffering, and here we are in Parliament worrying
Honorable
about whether
Van Dam.
we're called honourable or not.
Order,
There's bigger
members.
issues at
Honourable
stake, but
Van
I'll use
Dam.
honourable. The contract between Estina and honourable, and I use that very loosely, Zwane's department, was forwarded to Makashule's Office for Legal Advice and found that procurement processes were not followed and the contract may be invalid. And yet, he allowed for it to go ahead. Like Honourable Musebenzi Zwane, Ace Makashule must be charged and prosecuted, top 6 or not. Then, honourable speakers, honourable chairperson, are the ministers implicated in state capture. Faith Mutambi, who knowingly and deliberately shared confidential cabinet information with the Guptas. Honourable Des van Rooyen, who almost turned over the keys of National Treasury to the Guptas and lied repeatedly about a trip to Dubai paid for by the Guptas. Lynn Brown, who I see is also not here, who facilitated the appointment of Gupta-linked directors, opening the door to the Guptas to steal millions from state-owned entities. This is just a list of a few. The list is endless.
Honorable Van Dam.
Honorable House.
Honorable Van Dam, please take your seat, ma'am. Honorable ma'am, you are on your feet.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. The joint rule book, section 12 of it, says that all other rules are still applicable. I hear you, Honorable Van Dam, making reference to
Honorable member, address the honor. No, address me,
Honorable
please.
Van Dam is actually making allegations about ministers, and she knows
Point of order.
if there's anything that you are worried about, it needs to be presented to this House in a form of a substantive motion.
Thank you, ma'am. You are
Not to just
addressing
make
me.
Utterances.
House Chairperson, may I address you, please?
Yes, sir.
The rule that the member is referring to refers to discipline in the House, not order in debate. That means that if a member of the NCOP or a member of the NA is required to be disciplined, those rules then apply. It's not, you can't inject the rules of the National Assembly.
Thank you very
into this
much.
joint
Honorable members, please take
On
your
a point
seats.
of order,
Honorable Majeke, please take your seats. Honorable Shibambo, take your seat.
I'm not to address you.
Please take your seat. I want to address this point of order. Please take your seat.
Just before the ruling, like, I
No.
think that we must send
Honorable
caution.
Shibambo, take your seat. I'm addressing this point of order. If you have any additional member, I will give you.
Please come back to me immediately after that.
Honorable members, let the rules of the debate continue. Sometimes it does get uncomfortable. But let us not.
All right, we're just cutting out of this briefly for you. We've got some breaking news that Atul Gupta has filed an application for reconsideration of the preservation of 10 million rand, which the AFJ says was paid from the Estina dairy farm project into his bank account. He further says that he is out of the country, and at a time